Hello and welcome back to Brendan Moir's Playwright Corner, where I read plays, poems, or whatever's currently striking my fancy at the moment. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun and read the entirety of Saki's plays. Saki is a pen name for good old Mr. H. Munro, who was a British playwright and novelist in the 1800s, mid-1800s. Today we're going to be reading his three plays, otherwise known as The Death Trap, and then Carl Ludwig's Window, and finally The Watched Pot. This particular version comes with an introduction by J.T. Squire, so listen on. There are vagrant authors who, with sudden old zigzags, always elude the butterfly nets of criticism. Nothing much to the point, save in the way of mere unanalytical praise, has ever been said about Peacock's novels or the importance of being earnest. And the precise flavor of Saki is as easy to recognize and as impossible to define as that of a good claret or hock. Those who write about him are always tempted to discuss the latent qualities of the man whom they knew or whom they can deduce, to show that he satirized things that he hated, that he concealed profound affections, and that in spite of his jokes about all manner of catastrophes, he was a sensitive and humane man to whom cruelty was repugnant. This, no doubt, is all true, and occasionally his loves and even his fears peep out in his writing. It is, characteristically, in an appreciative essay on cats that he ends with, voicing in its death yell that agony of bitter remonstrance which human animals too have flung at the powers that may be, the last protest against a destiny that might have made them happy, and has not. But, generally, he was reserved in speech as in writing. It is enough for those who are not his friends to know that the jester died, overaged and a lance sergeant, in the trenches, and that his last words were, "Put that bloody cigarette out." To the commentator on his books, what most matters is not the man Murno who concealed himself behind them, but the artist Saki who wrote them. And Saki was a unique example of the man who tells lies with a grave face. Defoe told lies with a grave face, but they were grave lies. Swift told lies with a grave face, but the gravity was often interrupted either by guffaws or by the rasp of indignation. The jumping frog and the stolen white elephant were inventions as admirable as Saki's, and as seriously recounted. But the telling was all to Mark Twain, and the phraseology nothing. Saki's themes were akin to Mark Twain's, though more extravagant, but his matter was more Max Beerbohm's. He related a fantastic fable with the most matter-of-fact air. But, not content with that, he polished his sentences with a spinstering passion for neatness, and chose his words as the last of the dandies might choose his ties. Writing brief stories and sketches for evening newspapers, he was as careful with the shaping of his paragraphs as the most anchoret of aesthetics writing for an elect few with glass-fronted bookcases. He expanded the pains of a poet upon modern fairy tales, in which wizardry was exercised by or upon cats and dogs, house parties, duchesses, and men about town, instead of giants, dragons, trolls, and princesses, and the logic of magic operated with trim perfection against a background in which villas took the place of castles, and tennis lawns were substituted for unfathomable forests. And, in telling these fairy tales, it must be admitted that his object was purely to amuse, and his incidental achievement to make the human race ridiculous. One half of the world believes that the other half invents. Mendacity and credulity were the spectacles in which he chiefly delighted, and when he was not almost persuading us to swallow his own prodigious lies, he regaled us with the sight of our kindred swallowing the lives of his favorite heroes and heroines, the remorseless children and cynical young idlers. To Clovis, the world was a forest of legs, all waiting to be pulled unobtrusively and with gentlemanly grace. In the end, the reader of Saki is pleased in proportion to the magnitude of the lie. The wolf, in which everybody believes that the lady has been turned into a female Siberian wolf, is delightful. But even better is Tobamori, in which a cat not only is believed to speak, and, without question, accepted as speaking, but actually does speak, and to devastating purpose. The whole theme being perfectly worked out until the grand culmination when the bold discoverer is killed because he tries to teach an elephant German verbs. In this present book, the confirmed admirer of Saki is almost sorry that the square egg is not actually produced, but is represented as an ingenious myth. The lie is good, but Saki could have pushed it farther. His people have to fit his plots. They are consistent not with life, but with themselves and the queer world of his conception, and he contrives, even if he be realistic only in his limited way, to throw certain truths into a high light, and to express some, for to tell the unexpected truth is as much one of the conventions of his world as to tell the momentaneously obvious lie. It is a mere charming form of lying, to make people tell truths they will not tell, which are seldom expressed. The watched pot, most considerable of his promising dramatic efforts, may lack action, and be unduly strewn with elaborate witticisms, but there is a great deal of unaccustomed candour in it. Where it differs from the Slavonic plays in which people naively bare their souls is not in any extra remoteness from daily life, but in an occasional surprising contact with it. We can conceive of Chekhov in his gloomier moments as writing a play like The Watched Pot, in which a household woman should all be trying to marry a placid young man, and all continually confessing to each other, egging each other on, scratching at each other, or impudently maligning each other. Is Saki any more lacking in reality because he makes his dialogue witty? Or because he shows cook, butler, and housemaids as having a sweepstake on the event in the servants' hall? And half of his jokes depend for their force upon the exaggeration of truth. Renee remarks, "This suit I've got on was paid for last month, so you may judge how old it is." Here the truth is not important, except to tailors. With no more elaboration or afterthought, Saki would summarize aspects of world problems as they appeared to him, as in, government by democracy means government of the mentally unfit, by the mentally mediocre, tempered by the saving grace of snobbery. The form of this reminds one of Wilde. Wilde also might have written, "For all I know to the contrary, he may be by this time have joined the majority who are powerless to resent these intrusions." Although it took Saki to put into the mouth of an almost agreeable lady talking about her sick husband. We think of Wilde's plays again when, speaking of harvest festivals and the growth of imports, Claire says, "It shows such a nice spirit for a Somersetshire farmer to be duly thankful for the ripening of the Carlsbad plum." And in "So many people who are described as rough diamonds turn out to be merely rough paste." And in "There are heaps of coarse girls who are willing to marry commoners, if you set the right way about it." And in the repartee about Miss Volpe's makeup, and the sentence about the father who lived at West Kensington, but was sane on most other subjects, and the comparison of the accessibility of heaven with that of the House of Commons. Saki had all Wilde's cleverness at the substitution of a word in a stock saying or the inversion of a familiar proverb, and was an adept at contradicting our favorite cliches of word or thought, or strangely adapting them to unsuitable contexts. Yet though many of his sentences might be mistaken for Wilde's, none of his pages could be attributed to another man. They are all pervaded by a personal manner and attitude. The manner is the grave manner of the humorist who has opened a story thus. In an age when it had become increasingly difficult to accomplish anything new or original, Barton Bitterdale interested his generation by dying of a new disease. "We always knew he would do something remarkable one of these days," observed his aunts. "He has justified our belief in him." But there is a section of humanity ever ready to refuse recognition of meritorious achievement, and a large and influential school of doctors asserted their belief that Bitterdale was not really dead. The funeral arrangements had to be held over until the matter was settled one way or another, and the aunts went provisionally into half-mourning. As for the attitude after our initial disclaimer, no more need be said than that it was the attitude of the man who wrote. Whenever I feel in the last tempted to be businesslike, or methodical, or even decently industrious, I go to Kensal Green and look at the graves of those who died in business. He had seen half the world and had no doubt about his tastes, which he preferred to state by indirection. The Death Trap. Characters: Dmitri, reigning prince of Kadaria; Dr. Stronetz, Colonel Gernitza; Major von Tief; and Captain Schultz, officers of the Kronitsky Regiment of Guards. Scene: an antechamber in the prince's castle at Cern. Time: the present day. The scene opens at about 10 o'clock in the evening. Some rugs of Balkan manufacture on the walls. A narrow table in the center of the room, another table set within wine bottles and goblets near window. Right, some high-backed chairs set here and there around the room, tiled stove left, door in center. Gernitza, Von Tief, and Schultz are talking together as curtain rises. Gernitza:
The prince suspects something. I can see it in his manner.
Schultz: Let him suspect. He'll know for certain in half an hour's time. Gernitza:
The moment the Andreev regiment has marched out of the town, we are ready for him.
Schultz, drawing revolver from case and aiming it at an imaginary person. And then, short shift for your Royal Highness. I don't think many bullets will go astray. Gernitza:
The revolver was never a favorite weapon of mine. I shall finish the job with this.
Half draws his sword and sends it back into its scabbard with a click. Von Tief: Oh, we shall do for him right enough. It's a pity he's such a boy, though. I would rather have a grown man to deal with. Gernitza:
We must take our chance when we can find it. Grown men marry and breed heirs, and then one has to massacre a whole family. When we've killed this boy, we'll kill the last of the dynasty, and laid the way clear for Prince Carl. As long as there was one of this brood left, our good Carl would never win the throne.
Von Tief: Oh, I know this is our great chance. Still, I wish the boy could be cleared out of our path by the finger of heaven rather than by our hands. Schultz: Hush! Here he comes! Enter, by door, center, Prince Dmitri. He comes straight into room, begins taking a cigarette out of a case, and looks coldly at the three officers. Dmitri: You needn't wait. They bow and withdraw, Schultz going last and staring insolently at the prince. He seats himself at table, center. As door shuts, he stares for a moment at it, then suddenly bows his head on his arms in attitude of despair. A knock is heard at the door. Dmitri leaps to his feet. Enter Stronetz in civilian attire. Dmitri eagerly: Stronetz! My God, how glad I am to see you! Stronetz: One would have thought so, judging by the difficulty I had in gaining admission. I had to invent a special order to see you, a matter of health, and they made me give up my revolver. They said it was some new regulation. Dmitri with a short laugh: They have taken away every weapon I possess, under some pretext or another. My sword has gone to be reset. My revolver is being cleaned. My hunting knife has been mislaid. Stronetz, horrified: My God, Dmitri. You don't mean... Yes, I do. I am being trapped. Since I came to the throne 3 years ago as a boy of 14, I have been watched and guarded against this moment. But it has caught me unawares. Stronetz: But your guards! Did you notice the uniforms? The Kronitsky regiment. They are heart and soul for Prince Carl. The artillery are equally disaffected. The Andreev regiment was the only doubtful factor in their plans, and it marches out to camp tonight. The Lonyadi regiment comes in to relieve it an hour or so later. Stronetz: They are loyal, surely. Dmitri: Yes, but their loyalty will arrive in an hour or so too late. Stronetz: Dmitri, you mustn't stay here to be killed. You must get out quick. My dear, good Stronetz. For more than a generation, the Carl faction have been trying to stamp our line out of existence. I am the last of the lot. Do you suppose that they are going to let me slip out of their claws now? They're not so damned silly. Stronetz: But this is awful. You sit there and talk as if it were a move in a chess game. Dmitri, rising: Oh, Stronetz, if you knew how I hate death. I'm not a coward, but I do so want to live. Life is so horribly fascinating when one is young, and I've tasted so little of it. Goes to window. Look out of the window. That fairyland of mountains, with the forest running up and down all over it. You can just see Grodwitz, where I shot all last autumn. Up there, on the left. And far away beyond it is all Vienna. Were you ever in Vienna, Strunitz? I've only been there once. It seemed like a magic city to me. And there are other wonderful cities in the world that I've never seen. Oh, I do so want to live. Think of it. Here I am, alive and talking to you, as we've talked dozens of times in this grey old room, and tomorrow a fat, stupid servant will be washing up a red stain in that corner. I think it will probably be in that corner. He points to corner near stove, left. Stronetz. But you mustn't be butchered in cold blood like this, Dmitri. If they've left you nothing to fight with, I can give you a drug from my case that will bring you a speedy death before they can reach you. Dmitri. Thanks. No, old chap. You had better leave before it begins. I won't touch you. But I won't drug myself. I've never seen anyone kill before, and I shan't get another opportunity. Stronetz. I won't leave you. You can see 2 men killed while you're about it. A band is heard in distance playing a march. Dmitri. The Andreev regiment marching out. Now they won't waste much time. Hush! He draws himself up tense in corner by stove. They are coming. Stronetz, rushing silently towards Dmitri. Quick! An idea. Tear open your tunic. He unfastens Dmitri's tunic and appears to be testing his heart. The door swings open and the 3 officers enter. Stronetz waves a hand commanding silence and continues his testing. The officers stare at him. Gernitze.
Dr. Stronetz, will you have the goodness to leave the room? We have some business with His Royal Highness. Urgent business, Dr. Stronetz.
Stronetz, facing round. Gentlemen, I fear my business is more grave. I have the saddest of duties to perform. I know you would all gladly lay down your lives for your prince, but there are some perils which even your courage cannot avert. Gernitze, puzzled.
What are you talking of, sir?
Stronetz. The prince sent for me to prescribe for some disquieting symptoms that have declared themselves. I have made my examination. My duty is a cruel one. I cannot give him 6 days to live. Dmitri sinks into chair near table in pretended collapse. The officers turn to each other, nonplussed. Gernitze.
You are certain? It is a grave thing you are saying. You are not making any mistake.
Stronetz, laying his hand on Dmitri's shoulder. Would to God if I were. The officers again turn, whispering to each other. Gernitze.
It seems our business can wait.
Von Tief to Dmitri.
This is the finger of heaven.
Dmitri, brokenly.
Leave me.
They salute, and slowly withdraw. Dmitri slowly raises his head, then springs to his feet, rushes to the door, and listens, then turns round jubilantly to Stronetz. Dmitri. Spoof them! Ye gods, that was an idea, Stronetz! It was not altogether an inspiration, Dmitri. A look in your eyes suggested it. I had seen men who were stricken with a mortal disease look like that. Never mind what suggested it. You have saved me. The Lonyardy regiment will be here at any moment, and Gernitze's gang daren't risk anything then. You fooled them, Stronetz. You fooled them. Stronetz, sadly. Why, I haven't fooled them. Dmitri stares at him for a long moment. It was a real examination I made while those brutes were waiting there to kill you. It was a real report I made. The malady is there. Dmitri, slowly. Was it all true, what you told them? It was all true. You have not 6 days to live. Dmitri, bitterly. Death has come twice for me in one evening. I'm afraid he must be in earnest. Why didn't you let them kill me? That would have been better than this to be left till called for business. paces around to window right and looks out. Turns suddenly. Stronets! You offered me a way to escape from a cruel death just now. Let me escape now from a crueler one. I'm a monarch. I won't be kept waiting by death. Give me that little bottle. Stronets hesitates, then draws out a small case, extracts bottle and gives it to him. Stronets. 4 or 5 drops will do what you ask for. Dimitri. Thank you. And now, old friend. Goodbye. Go quickly. You've seen me just a little brave. I may not keep it up. I want you to remember me as being brave. Goodbye, best of friends. Go. Stronets wrings his hand and rushes from the room with his face hidden in his arm. The door shuts. Dimitri looks for a moment after his friend. Then he goes quickly over to side table and uncorks wine bottle. He is about to pour some wine into a goblet when he pauses, as if struck by a new idea. He goes to door, throws it open, and listens, then calls, Granitze! Von Tief! Schultz! Darting back to the table, he pours the entire vial of poison into the wine bottle, and thrusts vial into his pocket. Enter the 3 officers. Dimitri, pouring the wine into 4 goblets. Prince is dead. Long live the prince. He seats himself. The old feud must be healed now. There was no one left of my family to keep it on. Prince Carl must succeed. Long life to Prince Carl. Gentlemen of the Krenitsky Guards, drink to your future sovereign. The 3 officers drink after glancing at each other. Granitze.
Sire, we shall never serve a more gallant prince than your royal highness.
Dimitri. That is true, because you will never serve another prince. Observe, I drink fair. Drains goblet. Granitze.
What do you mean, never serve another prince?
Dimitri rises. I mean that I'm going to march into the next world at the head of my Krenitsky Guards. You came in here tonight to kill me. They all start. You found that death had forestalled you. I thought it a pity that the evening should be wasted, so I've killed you. That's all. Schultz. The wine! He's poisoned us! Von Tief seizes the bottle and examines it. Granitze.
Poisoned.
He draws his sword and makes a step towards Dimitri, who is sitting on the edge of the center table. Dimitri. Oh, certainly, if you wish it. I'm due to die of disease in a few days and of poison in a minute or 2. But if you like to take a little extra trouble about my ends, please yourself. Granitze reels and drops sword on table and falls back into chair groaning. Schultz falls across table, and Von Tief staggers against wall. At that moment, a lively march is heard approaching. Dimitri seizes the sword and waves it. The Lonyardi regiment marching in. My good, loyal Krenitsky Guard shall keep me company until the next world. God save the prince! Colonel Granitze. I never thought death could be so amusing. He falls dying to the ground. Curtain. Next up, we have Karl Ludwig's Window, a drama in 1 act. The characters are Kurt von Jägstein, the Gräfin von Jägstein, his mother, Isidora, his betrothed, Philip, Isidora's brother, Victoria, niece of the Gräfin, and Baron Rabel, a parvenu, who are all guests at Schloss Jägstein, as well as an officer. Time: an evening in Carnival Week, the present day. Scene: Karl Ludwig's room in the Schloss Jägstein on the outskirts of a town in Eastern Europe. In the center, a massive tiled stove of old German pattern, over which, on a broad shelf, a large clock. Above the clock, a painting of a man in 16th century costume. Immediately to left, in a deep embrasure, a window with a high window seat. Immediately on right of stove, an old iron-clamped door, approached by 2 steps. The walls to left and right are hung with faded tapestry. In the foreground, a long oak table with chairs right, left, and center, and a low armchair on left of stage. On the table are high-stemmed goblets and wine bottles, and a decanter of cognac with some smaller glasses. The Gräfin in an old court costume and Baron Rabel, also in some court attire of a bygone age, are discovered. Both wear little black velvet masks. The Baron bows low to the lady, who makes him a mock curtsy. They remove their masks. Gräfin, seating herself at left of table. Of course we old burrs are the first to be ready. Light a cigar, Baron, and make yourself at your ease while the young folks are completing their costumes. Baron, seating himself at table. At my ease in this room I could never be. It makes my flesh creep every time I enter it. I am what the world calls a parvenu. Light cigar. A man of today, or perhaps I should say of this afternoon, while your family is of the day before yesterday, and many yesterdays before that.
Naturally, I envy your ancestry, your title, your position, but
there is one thing I do not envy you. Gräfin, helping herself to wine. And that is, Baron, your horrible creepy traditions. Gräfin, you mean Karl Ludwig, I suppose. Yes, this room is certainly full of his associations. There is his portrait, and there is the window from which he was flung down. Only it is more than a tradition. It really happened. Baron,
that makes it all the more horrible. I am a man who belongs to a milder age, and it sickens me to think of the brutal deed that was carried through in this room. How his enemies stole in upon him and took him unawares, and how they dragged him screaming to that dreadful window. Gräfin, not screaming, I hope. Cursing and storming, perhaps. I don't think a von Jägstein would scream ever in a moment like that. The bravest man's courage might be turned to water looking down at death from that horrid window. It makes one's breath go, even to look down in safety. One can see the stones of the courtyard fathoms and fathoms below. Gräfin, let us hope he hadn't time to think about it. It would be the thinking of it that would be so terrible. Baron, with a shudder. Indeed. I assure you the glimpse down from that window has haunted me ever since I looked. Gräfin, the window is not the only thing in the room that is haunted. They say that whenever one of the family is going to die a violent death, that door swings open and shuts again of its own accord. It is supposed to be Karl Ludwig's ghost coming in. Baron, with an apprehensive glance behind him. What an unpleasant room. Let us forget its associations and talk about something more cheerful. How charming Fräulein Isidora is looking tonight. It is a pity her betrothed could not get leave to come to the ball with her. She is going as Elsa, is she not? Gräfin. Something of the sort, I believe. She's told me so often that I have forgotten. Baron. You will be fortunate in securing such a daughter-in-law, is it not so? Gräfin. Yes. Isidora has all the most desirable qualifications. Heaps of money, average good looks, and absolutely no brains. Baron. And are the young people very devoted to each other? Gräfin. I'm a woman of the world, Baron, and I don't put too high a value on the sentimental side of things. But even I have never seen an engaged couple who made less pretense of caring for one another. Kurt has always been the naughty boy of the family, but he made surprisingly little fuss about being betrothed to Isidora. He said he should never marry anyone he loved, so it didn't matter whom I married him to. Baron. That was at least accommodating. Gräfin. Besides the financial advantages of the match, the girl's aunt is a very influential position. So for a younger son, Kurt is doing rather well. Baron. He is a clever boy, is he not? He has that perverse kind of cleverness that is infinitely more troublesome than any amount of stupidity. I prefer a fool like Isidora. You can tell beforehand exactly what she will say or do under any given circumstances,
exactly on what day she will have a headache, and exactly how many garments she will send to the wash on Mondays.
Baron, a most convenient temperament.
With Kurt, one never knows where one is. Now, being in the same regiment with the Archduke ought to be of some advantage to him in his career, if he plays his cards well. But of course he'll do nothing of the sort. Baron, perhaps the fact of being betrothed will work a change in him. Grafin, you are an optimist. Nothing ever changes a perverse disposition. Kurt has always been a jarring element in our family circle, but I don't regard one unsatisfactory son out of 3 as a bad average. It's usually higher. Enter Isidora, dressed as Elsa, followed by Philip, a blonde, loutish youth, in the costume of a page, Henry III period. Isidora, I hope we haven't kept you waiting. I've been helping Victoria. She'll be here presently. They sit at table. Philip helps himself to wine. Grafin, we mustn't wait much longer. It's nearly 8:30 now. Baron,
I've just been saying, what a pity the young Kurt could not be here this evening for the ball.
Isidora, yes, it is a pity. He's only a few miles away with his regiment, but can't get leave till the end of the week. It is a pity, isn't it? Grafin, it is always the way. When one particularly wants people, they can never get away. Isidora, it's always the way, isn't it? Grafin, as for Kurt, he has a perfect gift for never being where you want him. Enter Kurt, in undress cavalry uniform. He comes rapidly into the room. Grafin, rising with the others. Kurt, how come you to be here? I thought you couldn't get leave. Kurt kisses his mother's hand, then that of Isidora, and bows to the 2 men. Kurt, I came away in a hurry, pours out a glass of wine, to avoid arrest. Your health, everybody. Drains glass thirstily. To avoid arrest! Arrest! Kurt throws himself wearily into armchair left of stage. The others stand staring at him. Grafin, what do you mean? Arrest for what? Kurt, quietly. I have killed the Archduke. Killed the Archduke? Do you mean you have murdered him? Kurt, scarcely that. It was a fair duel. Grafin, wringing her hands. Killed the Archduke in a duel. What an unheard of scandal. Oh, we are ruined. Baron, throwing his arms about. It's just unbelievable. What in heaven's names were the seconds about letting such a thing happen? Kurt, shortly. There were no seconds. Grafin, no seconds. And a regular duel. Oh, worse and worse. What a scandal. What an appalling scandal. Baron, but how do you mean, no seconds? Kurt, it was in the highest degree desirable that there should be no seconds, so that if the Archduke fell, there would be no witness to know the why and wherefore of the duel. Of course there will be scandal, but it will be a sealed scandal. Grafin, our poor family, we are ruined. Baron, persistently, but you are alive. You will have to give an account of what happened. Kurt, there is only one way in which my account can be rendered. Baron, after staring fixedly at him. You mean? Kurt, quietly. Yes. I escaped arrest only by giving my parole to follow the Archduke into the next world as soon as might be. Grafin, a suicide in our family. What an appalling affair. People will never stop talking about it. Isidora, it is very unfortunate, isn't it? Grafin, crossing over to Isidora. My poor child. Isidora dabs at her eyes. Enter Victoria, dressed in an Italian peasant costume. Victoria, I'm so sorry to be late. All these necklaces took so much time to fasten. Hello. Where did Kurt spring from? Kurt rises. Grafin, he has brought some bad news. Victoria, oh, how dreadful. Anything very bad? It won't prevent us from going to the ball, will it? It's going to be a particularly gay affair. A faint sound of a tolling bell is heard. Kurt, I don't fancy there will be a ball tonight. The news has come as quickly as I have. The bells are tolling already. Baron, dramatically, the scandal is complete. Grafin, I shall never forgive you, Kurt. Victoria, but what has happened? Kurt, I should like to say a few words to Isidora. Perhaps you will give us till 9 o'clock to talk things over. Grafin, I suppose it's the proper thing to do under the circumstances. Oh, why should I be afflicted with such a stupid son? Exit the Grafin, followed by the Baron, who waves his arms about dramatically, and by Philip and Victoria. Philip is explaining matters in whispers to the bewildered Victoria as they go out. Isidora, stupidly. This is very unfortunate, isn't it? Kurt, leaning across the table with sudden animation as the door closes to the others. Isidora, I've come to ask you to do something for me. The search party will arrive to arrest me at 9 o'clock, and I have given my word that they shall not find me alive. I've got less than 20 minutes left. You must promise to do what I ask you. What is it? I suppose it's a strange thing to ask of a woman I'm betrothed to, but there's really no one else who can do it for me. I want you to take a message to the woman I love. Kurt! Of course it's not very conventional, but I knew her and loved her long before I met you, ever since I was 18. That's only 3 years ago, but it seems the greater part of my life. It was a lonely and unhappy life I remember till she befriended me. And then it was like the magic of some old fairy tale. Isidora. Do I know who she is? You must have guessed that long ago. Your aunt will easily be able to get you an opportunity for speaking to her. And you must mention no name, give no token. Just say, I have a message for you. She will know who it comes from. I shall be dreadfully frightened. What is the message? Just one word. Goodbye. It's a very short message, isn't it? It's the longest message one heart ever sent to another. Other messages may fade away in memory, but time will keep on repeating that message as long as memory lasts. Every sunset and every nightfall will say goodbye for me. The door swings open and then slowly closes of its own accord. Kurt represses a shiver. Isidora, in a startled voice. What was that? Who opened the door? Kurt. Oh, it's nothing. It does that sometimes when under circumstances like the present. I shall faint. Don't you do anything of the sort. We haven't time for that. You haven't given me your promise. Do make haste. Promise you'll give the message. He seizes both her hands. I promise. Kurt, kissing her hands. Thank you. With a change to a lighter tone. I say, you haven't got a loaded revolver on you, have you? I came away in such a hurry I forgot to bring one. Of course I haven't. One doesn't take loaded revolvers into a masquerade ball. Kurt. It must be Karl Ludwig's window, then. He unbuckles his sword and throws it into the armchair. Oh, I forgot. This miniature mustn't be found on me. Don't be scandalized if I do a little undressing. Here you are. He picks up an illustrated paper from a stool near a stove and gives it to Isidora to hold open in front of her. He proceeds to unbutton his tunic at the neck and breast and removes a miniature which is hung around his neck. He gazes at it for a moment, kisses it, gazes again, then drops it on the floor and grinds it into pieces with his heel. Then he goes to window, opens it, and looks down. I wish the night were darker. One can see right down to the flagstones of the courtyard. It looks awful, but it will look 50 times more horrible in 8 minutes' time. He comes back to table and seats himself on its edge. As I rode along the way here, it seemed such a easy thing to die. And now it's come so close I feel sick with fear. Fancy a von Jägstein turning coward. What a scandal, as my dear mother would say. He tries to pour out some brandy, but his hand shakes too much. Do you mind pouring me out some brandy? I can't steady my hand. Isidora fills a glass for him. Thanks. No. Pushing it away. I won't take it. If I can't have my own courage, I won't have that kind. But I wish I hadn't looked down just now. Don't you know what it feels like to go down too quickly in a lift? As if one was racing one's insides and winning by a neck. That's what it will feel like for the first seconds. And then... He hides his eyes for a moment in his hands. Isidora falls back in her chair in a faint. Kurt looks up suddenly at clock. Kurt. Isidora, say that the clock is a minute fast. He looks towards her. She's fainted. Just what she would do. She isn't a brilliant conversationist, but she was someone to talk to. How beastly lonely it feels up here. Not a soul to say, "Buck up, Kurt, old boy." Nothing but a fainting woman and Carl Ludwig's ghost. I wonder if his ghost is watching me now. I wonder if I shall haunt this room. What a rum idea. Looks again at clock and gives a start. I can't die in 3 minutes' time. God, I can't do it. It isn't the jump that I shrink from now. It's the ending of everything. It's too horrible to think of it. To have no more life. Isadora and the Baron and millions of stupid people will go on living. Every day will bring them something new, and I shall never have one morsel of life after these 3 minutes. I can't do it. Falls heavily into chair, left of table. I'll go away somewhere, when no one knows me. That will be as good as dying. I told them they shall not find me here alive. Well, I can slip away before they come. He rises and moves towards door. His foot grinds on a piece of the broken miniature. He stoops and picks it up, looks hard and long at it, then drops it through his fingers. He turns his head slowly towards the clock and stands watching it. He takes handkerchief from his sleeve and wipes his mouth, returns handkerchief to sleeve, still watching the clock. Some seconds pass in silence. The clock strikes the first stroke of 9. Kurt turns and walks to window. He mounts the window seat and stands with one foot on the sill and looks out and down. He makes the sign of the cross, throws up his arms, and jumps into space. The door opens and the Gräfin enters, followed by an officer. They look at the swooning Isadora, then round the room for Kurt. Gräfin. He is gone. Officer. He gave me his word that I shall find him here at 9 o'clock, and that I should come too late to arrest him. It seems he has tricked me. Gräfin. Von Jagstein always keeps his word. She stares fixedly at the open window. The officer follows the direction of her gaze, goes over to window, looks out and down. He turns back to the room, straightens himself, and salutes. Curtain. The Watched Pot. Alternative title, The Mistress of Briony. This play has a little introduction which goes as follows. The Watched Pot was written in collaboration with Mr. Charles Maude, who has sent me the following account concerning the play. The circumstances of our writing The Watched Pot were, Mr. Frederick Harrison was very interested in your brother's original Watched Pot, but found it unsuitable for the stage, and brought Saki and myself together in the hope that our joint efforts would make it suitable. My share was shortening it, giving it incident, and generally adapting it for stage purposes. Saki used to write more as a novelist than a playwright. He and I used to have many friendly quarrels, as he was so full of witty remarks that it was cruel business escorting some of his bon mots. We always used to terminate such quarrels by arguing to use his axed witticism in our next play. Shortly before the war, Saki at last gave in on the question of plot, and we had practically completed an entirely new story, still retaining the characters which he loved so dearly and to which were so typical of his brain.
The character of Hortensia Bavvel is from life, but the tyranny of her prototype was confined to her own family.
She died many years ago. E.M.M.
The characters of this play are Trevor Bavvel, Hortensia, Mrs. Bavvel, his mother, Ludovic Bavvel, his uncle, Renee St. Gall, Agatha Clifford, Claire Hennessy, Sybil Beaumont, Mrs. Peter Volpe, and Stephen Sparrowby, who are all guests at Briony. There's Colonel Mutsum, the youngest Drummond boy, William, page boy at Briony, and John, under butler at Briony.
Act 1. Breakfast room at Briony Manor. Ludovic fidgeting with papers at escritoire, left, occasionally writing. Mrs. Volpe seated in an armchair right, with her back partially turned to him, glancing at illustrated papers. Mrs. Volpe, with a would-be fashionable drawl. "So sweet of your dear cousin Agatha to bring me down here with her. Such a refreshing change from the dust and glare of Folkestone. And so unexpected. Her invitation took me quite by surprise."
Ludovic. Dear Agatha is always taking people by surprise. She was born taking people by surprise.
In Goodwood Week, I believe. With an ambassador staying in a house who hated babies.
So thoroughly like her.
One feels certain that she'll die one of these days in some surprising and highly inconvenient manner. Probably from snakebite on the terrace of House of Commons.
Mrs. Volby. "I'm afraid you don't like your cousin."
Oh dear, yes. I make it a rule to like my relations. I remember only their good qualities and forget their birthdays.
With increased animation, rising from his seat and approaching her.
Excuse the question, Mrs. Volby. Are you a widow?
"I really can't say with any certainty."
You can't say.
"With any certainty. According to latest mail advices from Johannesburg, my husband, Mr. Peter Volpe, was not expected by his medical attendants to last into the next week. On the other hand, a cablegram from the local mining organ to a city newspaper over here congratulates that genuine sportsman, Mr. P. Volpe, on his recovery from his recent severe illness. There happens to be a Percival Volpe in Johannesburg, so my present information is not very conclusive in either. Doctors and journalists are both so untrustworthy, aren't they?"
Ludovic. Could your Mr. P. Volpe be correctly described as a genuine sportsman?
There was nothing genuine about Peter. I've never heard of his hitting even a partridge in anger, but he used to wear a horseshoe scarf pin, and I've known him to watch football matches, so I suppose he might be described as sportsman. For all I know to the contrary, he may by this time have joined the majority, who are powerless to resent these intrusions. But my private impression is that he's sitting up and taking light nourishment in increasing doses."
How extremely unsatisfactory.
Mrs. Volby. "Really, Mr. Bavvel, I think if anyone is to mourn Mr. Volby's continued existence, I should be allowed that privilege. After all, he's my husband, you know. Perhaps you are one of those who don't believe that the marriage tie gives one any proprietary rights."
Ludovic. Oh, most certainly I do. I'm a prospective candidate for parliamentary honours, and I believe in all the usual things. My objection to Mr. Volpe's inconvenient vitality is entirely impersonal. If you were in a state of widowhood, there would be no obstacle to your marrying Trevor.
Resumes seat at escritoire, but sits facing her. "Marrying Trevor? Really, this is interesting. And why, pray, should I be singled out for that destiny?"
Ludovic. My dear Mrs. Volpe, let me be absolutely frank with you. Honoured as we should be to welcome you into the family circle, I may at once confess that my solicitude is not so much to see you married to my nephew as to see him married to somebody. Happily and suitably married, of course, but anyhow married. The gist of the business is this. Like most gifted young men, Trevor has a mother.
Oh, I fancy I know that already.
One could scarcely be at the Briony for half an hour without making that discovery.
Hortensia, Mrs. Bavvel, is not exactly one of those things that one can hide under a damask cheek, or whatever the saying is.
Hortensia is a very estimable woman. Most estimable women are apt to be a little trying. Without pretending to be an exhaustive knowledge on the subject, I should say Hortensia was the most trying woman in Somersetshire. Probably without exaggeration, one of the most trying women in the west of England. My late brother Edward,
Hortensia's husband,
who was not given to making original observations if he could find others ready-made to his hand, used to declare that
marriage was a lottery.
Like most popular sayings, that simile breaks down on application. In a lottery, there are prizes and blanks. No one who knew her would think of describing Hortensia as either a prize or a blank.
Well, no. She doesn't come comfortably under either heading.
My brother was distinguished for what is known as a retiring disposition. Hortensia, on the other hand, was dowered with a commanding personality. Needless to say, she became a power in the household, in a very short time the only power. A sort of governor general and mother superior and political boss rolled into one. A Catherine II of Russia without any of Catherine's redeeming vices.
Mrs. Volby. An uncomfortable sort of person to live with.
Ludovic. Hortensia did everything that had to be done in the management of a large estate.
and a great deal that might have been left undone. She engaged and dismissed gardeners, decided which of the under gamekeepers might marry and how much gooseberry jam might be made in a given year, regulated the speed at which perambulators might be driven through the village street and the number of candles which might be lighted in church on dark afternoons without suspicion of popery. Almost the only periodical literature that she allowed in the house was The Spectator, and The Exchange and Mart, neither of which showed any tendency to publish betting news. Halma and chess were forbidden on Sundays for fear of setting a bad example to the servants. Mrs. Volby: if servants knew how often the fear of leading them astray by bad example holds us back from desperate wickedness, I'm sure they would ask for double wages. And what was poor Mr. Edward doing all this time?
Ludovic: Edward was not of a complaining disposition, and for a while he endured Hortensia with a certain philosophic calm. Later, however, he gave way to golf.
And Hortensia went on bossing things?
From the lack of any organized opposition, her autocracy rapidly developed into a despotism. Her gubernatorial energies overflowed the limits of the estate and parish, and she became a sort of minor power in the moral and political life of the county, not to say the nation. Nothing seemed to escape her vigilance, whether it happened in the established church or the servants' hall or in the foreign office. She quarreled with the Macedonian policy of every successive government, exposed the hitherto unsuspected atheism of the nearest dean and chapter, and dismissed a page boy for parting his hair in the middle. With equal readiness, she prescribed rules for the better management of the Young Women's Christian Association and the Devon and Somerset Staghounds. Briony used to be a favourite rendezvous for the scattered members of the family. Under the Hortensia regime, we began to find the train service less convenient, and our opportunities for making prolonged visits recurred at rare intervals.
Mrs. Volby: didn't her health wear out under all that strain of activity?
Ludovic: with the exception of an occasional full-dress headache, Hortensia enjoyed impeccable good health. We resigned ourselves to the prospect of the good lady's rule at Briony for the rest of our natural lives. Then something happened which we had left out of all of our calculations. Edward caught a chill out otter hunting, and in less than a week, Hortensia was a widow. We are what is known as a very united family, and poor dear Edward's death affected us acutely.
Mrs. Volby: naturally it would, coming so suddenly.
Ludovic: at the time there was a rainbow of consolation irritating our grief. Edward's otherwise untimely decease seemed to promise the early dethronement of Hortensia. Trevor was 20 years of age, and in the natural course of things he would soon be the absolute master of Briony, and the relict of Edward Bavvel would be denuded of her despotic terrors and become merely a tiresome woman. As I have said, we were all much attended to poor Edward, but somehow his funeral was one of the most cheerful functions that we had celebrated at Briony for many years. Then came a discovery that cast a genuine gloom over the whole affair. Edward had left the management of the estate and the control of his entire and very considerable fortune to Hortensia, until such time as Trevor should take unto himself a wife. Rises from seat and takes short steps up and down. That was 6 long years ago, and Trevor is still unmarried, unengaged, not even markedly attracted towards any eligible female. Hortensia, on the other hand, has, ripened, without undergoing any process of mellowing. Rather the reverse.
Aha! I begin to twig. Deprived by Trevor's marriage of her control of the moneybags, Hortensia, as a domestic tyrant, would shrink down to bearable limits.
Ludovic, seating himself: Hortensia, under existing circumstances, is like a permeating dust storm, which you can't possibly get away from or pretend that it's not there. Living with a comparatively modest establishment at the Dower House, she would be merely like town in August, or the bite of a camel, a painful experience which may be avoided with a little ordinary prudence.
Mrs. Volby: I don't wonder that you're keen on the change.
Keen? There is no one on the estate or in the family who doesn't include it in his or her private litany of daily wants.
Mrs. Volby: and I suppose Mrs. Bavvel is not at all anxious to see herself put on the shelf and does her best to head Mr. Trevor off from any immediate matrimonial projects.
Of course, Hortensia recognizes the
desirability of Trevor ultimately finding a suitable consort, if only for carrying on the family. I've no doubt that one day she'll produce some flabby little non-entity who will be flung into Trevor's arms with a maternal benediction. Mrs. Volby, meantime you haven't been able to get him to commit himself in any way. But perhaps his mother would break off any engagement she didn't approve of. Oh, no fear of that. With all his inertness, Trevor has a wholesome strain of obstinacy in his composition. If he once gets engaged to a girl, he'll marry her. The trouble is that his obstinacy takes the form of his refusing to be seriously attracted by any particular competitor. If patient, determined effort on the part of others would have been availed, he would have been married dozens of times. But a touch of real genius is required. That is why I appeal to you to help us. Mrs. Volby, I suppose Agatha considers herself in the running? Poor Agatha has a perfect genius for supporting lost causes. I have no doubt she fancies she has an off chance of becoming Mrs. Trevor Bavvel.
I have equally no doubt that she ever will.
Agatha is one of those unaccountable people who are impelled to keep up an inconsequent flow of conversation if they detect you trying to read a book or write a letter. And if you should be suffering from an acknowledged headache, she invariably bangs out something particularly triumphant on the nearest piano by way of showing that she is at least not downhearted. Or if you want to think of some complicated problem, she will come and sit by your side and read through an entire bulb catalogue to you with exploratory comments of her own. No. We are all very fond of Agatha, but strictly as a cheerful, inane sort of person to have about the house. Someone else's house for preference. Mrs. Volby. And what about Miss Hennessy? Oh, Claire. She's a rattling good sort in her own way, and at one time I used to hope that she and Trevor might hit it off. I think in his own sleepy way he was rather attracted to her. Unfortunately, she only pays rare visits here, and even that she has to keep dark. You see, she's the favourite grandniece of a prospective heiress of old Mrs. Packington. You've heard of Mrs. Packington? No, who is she? She lives near Bath, and she's fabulously old and fabulously rich, and she's been fabulously ill for longer than any living human being can remember. I believe she caught a chill at Queen Victoria's coronation and never let it go again. The most human thing about her is her dislike for Hortensia, who, I believe, once advised her to take more exercise and less medicine. The old lady has ever since alluded to her as a rattlesnake in dove's plumage, and has more than once, with her dying breath, cautioned Claire against intercourse with Briony and its inhabitants. So, you see, there's not much to be hoped for in that direction. Mrs. Volby. Awfully provoking, isn't it? What about Sybil Beaumont? Ludovic. Sybil is the one ray of hope that I can see on the horizon. Personally, she is rather too prickly in her temperament to suit me. She has a fatal gift for detecting the weak spots in her fellow humans and sticking her spikes into them. Matrimony is not reputed to be an invariable bed of roses, but there's no reason why it should be a cactus hedge. However, she is clever enough to keep that side of her character to the wall whenever Trevor is alongside. Mrs. Volby. And do you think she's got a good sporting chance with him? She isn't losing any opportunities that come along. And I'm naturally trying my best to drive the game up her way, but the daily round at Briony doesn't give us much help. We begin the day with solid breakfast business, and there are partridges to be tramped after, and Trevor takes his birds rather solemnly, as though it hurt him more than it does them, you know. In the evening, a solid dinner, and then bridge for such small stakes that even Agatha can't lose enough in a fortnight to convince her that she can't play. Then bed. Well, that's not a very promising program for anyone who's working a matrimonial movement. Couldn't we get up something that would supply a few more openings? Why not theatricals? Theatricals. Briony. You might as well suggest a massacre of Christian villagers. Hortensia looks on the stage and everything that pertains to it as a sort of early door to the infernal regions. What about a gymkhana? Infinitely worse. The mention of a gymkhana would suggest to Hortensia's mind the unchastened relentlessness of the Anglo-Saxon grafted onto the traditional licentiousness of the Purple East. The very word gymkhana reeks with an aroma of long drink sweepstakes and betrayed husbands, and the usual things that are supposed to strew the social horizon east of Suez. Mrs. Volby. Well, I'm afraid it's hopeless. I give up. Ludovic, rising hastily from his seat. Dear Mrs. Volby,
On no account give it up. I rely so much on your tact and insight and experience. You must think of something. I'm not a wealthy man, but if you help me to pull this through, I promise you my gratitude shall take concrete shape. A commemorative bracelet, for instance. Have you any particular favorite stones?
I love all stones. Except garnets or moonstones.
You think it unlucky to have moonstones?
Oh, distinctly. If you've the chance of getting something more valuable. I adore rubies. They're so sympathetic.
I'll make a note of it. Writes in pocketbook.
I gather that we're to concentrate on Sybil?
Ludovic. Sybil, certainly. And of course, if there's anything I can do to back you up. Enter Claire and Sybil by door. Left back. No, I don't know that part of Switzerland. I once spent a winter at St. Moritz. Claire seats herself on couch right. Sybil takes chair in center stage. Claire.
You needn't pretend you're discussing Swiss health resorts, because you're not.
Mrs. Volby.
Oh, but we are, Miss Hennessy. I was just saying Montreux was so... We're discussing Trevor and possible Mrs. Trevors. Mrs. Volpe, it is our one subject of discussion here.
Sybil.
It's a frightfully absorbing subject. Especially for me.
Claire.
Why for you especially? Oh, well, dear.
Ludovic. We did touch on the subject, I admit. And Mrs. Volpe has very kindly offered to help matters along in that direction if she can find an opportunity. Sybil.
Have you had bad news from South Africa?
Mrs. Volpe.
Oh dear, no. My author is quite disinterested.
Sybil.
How noble of you.
How do you propose to begin?
Well, I was just suggesting a little departure from the usual routine of life here. Something that would give an opening for a clever girl to bring a man to the scratch. But it seems that Mrs. Bavvel is rather against any of the more promising forms of entertainment.
Sybil.
We've had the annual harvest Thanksgiving, but Trevor was seedy and couldn't help with the decorations.
Mrs. Volby.
Harvest Thanksgiving.
Claire.
Yes, it's one of our rural institutions. We get our corn and most of our fruit from abroad, but we always assemble the local farmers and tenantry to give thanks for the harvest. So broad-minded of us. It shows such a nice spirit for a Somersetshire farmer to be duly thanked for the ripening of the Carlsbad plum.
Mrs. Volby.
Is Mrs. Bavvel never absent at dinner parties or anything of that sort? A little impromptu frolic is sometimes a great success.
Ludovic. Now if you're going to plot anything illicit, I must really leave you. Hortensia is not in very great demand as a dinner guest, but she is taking me tomorrow to a meeting at Panfold in connection with the opening of a free library there, and there will be a reception of some sort in the town hall afterwards. I entirely disapprove of anything of a festive nature taking place here behind her back, but we shan't be back much before midnight. It's a fairly long drive. Understand, I entirely disapprove. Gathers papers and exits door left front. Sybil.
This threatens to be rather sporting.
What have you got up your sleeve?
Mrs. Volby. Oh, nothing. Only why not beat up your men and girlfriends at short notice and have a Cinderella? There's a lovely floor in the morning room and a good piano, and you could have a scratch supper.
Claire.
And how about the servants? Are we to beg them all individually to hold their tongues about the affair?
Mrs. Volby.
Oh, of course Mrs. Bavvel would have to know about it next day.
Claire.
It's very well for you to talk like that. You're a comparative stranger here, and I dare say you'd find a certain amount of amusement in the situation. Those of us who know what Hortensia is like when anything displeases her, well, it would simply be a case of Bradshaw at breakfast and a tea basket at Yeovil.
Mrs. Volby.
But then we're playing to win. It's a sort of coup d'etat. With the fun and the excitement of the dancing and the music, and of course the sitting out places, and above all the charming sense of doing something wrong, the betting is that Trevor will be engaged to one of you girls before the night's out. And then the morrow can be left to take care of itself.
Sybil. It sounds lovely.
I'm horribly frightened of Hortensia, but I'm game to get up this dance.
Claire.
Coup d'etat is a wretchedly messy thing. It's as bad as cooking with a chafing dish. It takes such ages to clean up things afterwards.
Enter Agatha door right back, with 2 large baskets piled with asters, dahlias, etc., and long trails of ivy and brambles. Agatha.
Hello, you idle people. I'm just going to arrange the flowers. Puts baskets down on escritoire. Sybil. Are you? Why? Agatha. Oh, I always do when I'm here. Begins slopping flowers and leaves about in inconvenient places. Mrs. Volby. We're plotting to have a little impromptu dance here tomorrow night. Agatha, spilling a lot of dahlias over Mrs. Volby. Oh, you dear things, how delightful! But whatever will Hortensia say? Sybil. Hortensia is opening an ear hospital or free library or some such horror at Panfold, and won't know about it till it's all over, and then it will be too late to say much. Claire. I fancy you'll find that Hortensia's motto will be better late than never. Agatha. Oh, I fancy she'll be rather furious. But what fun all the same. But who will we get to come? Sybil. Oh, we can get 9 couples easily. There's all the Abington house party, there'll be dead nuts on it. And Evelyn Bray plays dance music like a professional. Agatha. What a lovely joke. I say, let's make it a fancy dress affair while we're about it. Sybil. Oh, let's have fireworks on the lawn and Salome dances and Looping the Loop performances. Agatha. That's talking nonsense. But fancy dress is so easily managed. I went to a ball in North Devon 3 years ago this summer, and it was all done at a moment's notice. A dress of some soft creamy material with roses in my hair and a few sprays of flowers round the skirt. I've got the dress with me somewhere, and it would need very much alteration. Sybil. It will only want letting out a bit at the waist, and you can call yourself St. Martin's Summer. Agatha. How dare you say such things? Really, you're the most spiteful-tongued person I know. I think you should better go as an east wind. Sybil. My dear Agatha, I'm not one of the babes in the woods, so I wish you'd stop covering me with leaves. And don't let us start quarrelling. Of course you're as jumpy as a grasshopper at the idea of this dance. And I suppose you flatter yourself that you're going to pull it off with Trevor. Because a man has refused you twice, there's no particular reason for supposing he'll accept you at the third bidding. It's merely a superstition. Agatha, furiously. You utterly odious fablemonger! I suppose it's considered clever to say ill-natured, untrue things about people you happen to be jealous of. Mrs. Volby. My dear girls, don't waste time in a sparring match. There's no sense in quarrelling when we want to get our little scheme started. Sybil. I don't want to quarrel. I'm only too ready to be accommodating all round. If I do chance to land a certain eligible individual in my net, I'm quite willing to turn my second-best prospect over to anyone who applies for him. Quite a darling with a decent rent roll and a perfect martyr to asthma. Ever so many climates that he can't live in, and he'll have to keep on a gravel soil. Awfully good arrangement, a husband with asthma that has all the advantages of a captive golf ball. You always know pretty well where to put your hand on him, and when you want him. Agatha. But if I had a really nice man for a husband, I shouldn't want him to be able to come with me wherever I went. Sybil. A woman who takes her husband about with her is like a cat that goes on playing with a mouse long after she's killed it. Mrs. Volby. First, catch your mouse. Which brings us back to the subject of the dance. I think we agree that fancy dress is out of the question? Claire. There wouldn't be time. Mrs. Volby. Well, why not make it a sheet and pillowcase dance? They all stare at her. It's quite simple. Everyone drapes themselves in sheets with a folded pillowcase arranged as a headdress, and a little linen mask completes the domino effect. No trouble, only takes 10 minutes to arrange, and at a given time everyone sheds their masks and headgear, and the sheets make a most effective sort of Greek costume. Lulu, Duchess of Dulverton, gave quite a smart sheet and pillowcase at Bovary the other day. Agatha. Was it respectable? Mrs. Volby. Absolutely. Oh, do take your blessed bramble bush somewhere else. Agatha, who has impaled Mrs. Volby's skirt on a trail of briars, makes violent efforts to disentangle her. Mrs. Volby. No, please, leave my skirt where it is. I only want the brambles removed. Agatha. That's the worst of the briars. They do catch onto one's clothes so. Mrs. Volby. That is one of the reasons why I never sit down in a bramble patch for choice. Of course, if one has a tame hedge following one about the house, one can't help it. Agatha, gathering up remains of her foliage. Well, I shall go and do the dining room vases now, and leave you irritable things to work out the dance program. I'll think out of a list of people we can invite. Woo! Exit door front. Claire.
Agatha would almost be tolerable in the Arctic regions,
where the vegetation is too restricted to be used for house decorations. Sybil, look here. I'll bike over to the Abingtons and get things in marching order there. I've just time before lunch. You're going to help us, I suppose, Claire? Claire. Oh, if you all are bent on having a domestic earthquake, I'll stand in with you.
But I know that this thing is going to be a horrid fizzle.
Sybil. You dear old thing. You always turn up trumps when it comes to the pinch. Claire. If you dare call me a dear old thing, I'll allude to you in public as a brave little woman. So there. Mrs. Volpe. Well, if you two are going to start sparring, I shall go and write letters. Exit Mrs. Volpe. Door right back. Claire. There's something I don't like about that woman. She looks at me sometimes in a way that's almost malicious. What on earth did Agatha bring her down here for? Sybil. Mrs. Volpe is somewhat of a rough diamond, no doubt. Claire. So many people who are described as rough diamonds turn out to be merely rough paste. Sybil. Even paste has its uses. Claire. Oh, afflictions of most kinds have their uses, I suppose, but one needn't go out of one's way to import them. Exit Sybil, right back. Enter Trevor, left back. He is about to sit on couch. Claire. Careful where you sit, Trevor. Agatha has been shedding bits of bramble all over the room. They both began picking bits of leaf, etc. off the couch. When the parable was being read at prayers this morning about going to the hedges and byways to fetch in the halt and the blind, I couldn't help but thinking Agatha wouldn't have stopped at that. She'd have brought in the hedges as well. Trevor, seating himself with caution on couch. I've just had about a wheelbarrow load of gorse prickles removed from the cozy corner in the smoking room. Claire. Gorse prickles. Seats herself on couch. Trevor. Agatha said it was a Japanese design. If it had been an accident, I could have forgiven it. I say, Claire. Got rather beautiful eyes. Claire. How should I know? You've never mentioned it before. Oh, well, I noticed it long ago, but it takes me ages to put my thoughts into words. That's rather unfortunate where compliments are concerned. By the time it occurs to you to tell me that I've got a nice profile, I shall probably have developed a double chin. Trevor. That will be the time when you'll be best pleased at being told you've got a nice profile. So you see, there's some sense in holding back a compliment. Claire. Well, don't be horrid and sensible just when you were beginning to be interesting. It's not often one catches you in the mood for paying compliments. Please, begin over again. Trevor. Her beautiful eyes. One rather nice chin with power to add to its number. Quite a lot of very pretty hair standing in its own grounds. Or is it semi-detached? Claire. I don't think your compliments are a bit nice. I don't mind how long you kept them back. I haven't finished yet. Do you know, Claire, you've got the most charming hand in the world. Because it's a friendly hand. I think if you were once friends with a fellow, you'd always be friends with him. Even if you married him. And that's saying a great deal. I think if I liked a man well enough to marry him, I should always be the best of friends with him. Enter Ludovic. Bustles over to escritoire. Ludovic, as they let go of each other's hands.
Hello. Has Trevor been telling you your fortune?
Claire, rising. Nothing so romantic. He's been explaining the fingerprint system of criminal investigation. If ever I strangle Agatha in a moment of justifiable irritation, Trevor will be a most damaging witness. Ludovic rings bell, and then seats himself at escritoire. Trevor. Shall I be disturbing you if I smoke a cigarette here?
Not in the least. I like seeing people idle when I'm occupied. It gives me the impression that I'm working so much harder than I am.
Claire. Don't be so long over your cigarette, Trevor. You've got to be let into a conspiracy that Mr. Ludovic isn't supposed to know anything about. Trevor. Are they plotting to give you a birthday present or something of that sort?
Ludovic. Nothing so laudable.
Enter William, right front. Will.
Did you ring, sir?
Ludovic.
Yes, just arrange the flowers.
Yes, sir.
gathers up flowers and foliage from various places where Agatha has stacked and strewn them, and proceeds to rearrange them with considerable taste. Ludovic, to Trevor. No, it's your despotic mother who mustn't get wind of the plot. I am merely the innocent bystander. Trevor. I'm awfully fond of my mother, of course, but I must admit, would be a little more comfortable if she wasn't quite so... Ludovic. Exactly. But she always has been and she always will be. As regards household affairs, of course, I've no right to express my opinion, but her constant supervision of the political affairs of the neighborhood is extremely embarrassing to the party. My prospective candidature down here is becoming more and more doubtful under the circumstances. Hortensia is not content with having a finger in the pie. She wants to put the whole dish into her pocket. Will, who is standing near a doorway.
Mrs. Bavvel is crossing the hall, sir.
Ludovic becomes violently busy at escritoire.
The factory systems in East Prussia present many interesting points of comparison.
Enter Hortensia, right. Ludovic rises.
Hortensia.
Hortensia.
William, what are you doing here?
William.
Arranging the flowers, ma'am.
Hortensia.
They don't want arranging every day. They were only arranged yesterday.
Seats herself on chair in center of stage. Ludovic resumes seat. Will.
It was brought on prematurely, ma'am.
Ludovic.
Agatha has been trying some new effects in autumnal foliage. I told William to put things straight a bit.
Hortensia. I see. And where is Adolphus? William.
The cockatoo, ma'am. She's drying in the pantry after her bath.
It's not his day for a bath. He always bathes on Thursday. Will.
She seemed restless, as if she wanted to, ma'am.
Hortensia. In future, remember he bathes on Thursdays only. And William.
Yes, ma'am?
I think I've spoken about it before. You always hear me allude to the cockatoo as he, or Adolphus, therefore you are not to speak of him in the feminine gender.
Yes, ma'am.
Exit left, front. Hortensia. A quiet-mannered boy and always behaves reverently at prayers. But I'm afraid he's inclined to be opinionated. What coverts are you shooting this afternoon, Trevor? Trevor. The other side of the long plantation. Hortensia. I understand that you are employing one of the Brady boys as a beater? Kindly discontinue his services. But, Mother, the Bradys are dreadfully poor, not deservingly poor. Mrs. Brady is the most thriftless woman in the parish. Some people can't help being poor, but Mrs. Brady is poor as if she enjoyed it. I'm not going to have that sort of thing encouraged. Ludovic, rising from seat.
There is another aspect of the matter which I think you are losing sight of, Hortensia. Mrs. Brady may be poor in the world's goods, but she is rich in relatives. She has a husband and 1 or 2 uncles, and at least 3 brothers, and they all have votes. The non-employment of the Brady boy may lose us all those votes at the next election.
My dear Ludovic, I am not inattentive to local political needs. I supervise the issue of pamphlets dealing with the questions of the day to all electors in monthly installments. When the next election comes, you may be sure it won't take me by surprise. Ludovic.
No. But the results may.
Resumes his seat. Trevor, oblige me by taking an amended list of beaters to the headkeeper, with the Brady boy left out. Go now, or you will forget. As you will, Mother. He made a very good beater, you know, but not a suitable one. Exit Trevor. Ludovic throws up his hands. Who is this Mrs. Volpe that Agatha has brought down? I don't care for the look of her. Ludovic.
I believe Agatha met her at Folkestone.
That doesn't make it any better. Agatha says she's seen some trouble, but she doesn't explain what sort of trouble.
Some women see trouble with their eyes open. I believe she has a husband in Johannesburg.
To have a husband in Johannesburg may be a source of anxiety or inconvenience, but it can hardly be called seeing trouble.
Agatha is so good-natured that she's very easily imposed on.
Hortensia. I wish her good nature would occasionally take the form of consulting other people's interests. I suppose this Mrs. Volpe is married after a fashion.
We really know nothing about her. She may be merely a husband-hunting adventuress, and of course Trevor is sufficiently important as a matrimonial prize to attract that sort of woman.
Agatha ought to be more careful.
Wouldn't it be as well, in view of such dangers, if Trevor were not to bestir himself to find a suitable wife?
Nothing of the sort. I must ask you not to give him any advice of that sort. Trevor is far younger than his years, and there's no need to suggest marriage to him for a long while to come.
If I thought he had any present intentions that way, I should be far more particular what sort of girls I had staying down here. Sybil Beaumont and Miss Hennessy, for instance, I have no objections to them as guests, but I should require quite a different type of young woman for a daughter-in-law.
Trevor may have his own views on the subject.
Hitherto he has expressed none. I must go and write to the bishop.
About Trevor?
No. About the Dean of Minehead.
What has the Dean been doing?
He has treated me with flippancy. I had written asking if he could give me any material for a lecture I am going to give next week on the Puritan movement in England. He replies on a postcard, the Puritan movement was a disease, wholesome though irritating, which was only malignant if its after effects were not guarded against. Things have come to a disgraceful pass when a church dignitary can treat the Puritan movement in that spirit.
Perhaps the Dean was only exercising a little clerical humour.
I don't think the subject lends itself to jest. And I certainly don't intend that my lecture shall be regarded in a spirit of frivolity. I have something better to do than provide an outlet for deanery humour. My letter to the bishop will contain some pretty plain speaking.
My dear Hortensia, the Dean of Minehead is one of the few churchmen in these parts who gives us political support. It would be rather unfortunate to fall out with him.
In my opinion, it would still be far more unfortunate to tolerate postcard flippancies on serious subjects from men in his position. I shall ask the bishop, among other things, whether it is not high time that certain clerical clowns cease their unfair competition with the music halls. Exit Hortensia right back. Ludovic goes through pantomime of tragic disgust. Enter butler, left. Butler. Mr. St. Gall to see you, sir.
Ludovic. Renee. What on earth brings him down here? Show him in.
Exit butler left back. Enter Renee left back. Crosses stage without shaking hands, looks at himself in mirror right. Renee. I've lost my mother. Ludovic, wheeling round in chair.
Do I understand you to mean that your mother is dead?
Renee, who has carefully settled himself in armchair right. Oh, nothing so hackneyed. I don't think my mother will ever die as long as she can get credit. She was at Waterford, you know, and the Waterfords never waste anything. No, she simply disappeared and I was wired for. It was most inconvenient.
Ludovic. But she can't be found.
The butler says she can't. Personally, I haven't tried. I only got down late last night and I've come away with simply nothing to wear. I've been in town for the last 3 days having some clothes made, and I was to have had 2 new lounge suits tried on this morning for the first time. Naturally, I'm a bit upset.
But your mother's disappearance? Aren't you doing anything?
Renee. Oh, everything that could be done at short notice. We've notified the police and the family solicitors and consulted the crystal gazer, and we've told the dairy to send half a pint less of milk every day till further notice. I can't think of anything else to do. It's the first time I've lost a mother, you know.
Ludovic. But do you mean to say there's absolutely no trace of her?
Why, I saw her in church only last Sunday.
Renee. I expect they've looked for her there. The butler says they've searched everywhere. The servants have been awfully kind and helpful about it. They say they must put their trust in Christian Science and go on drawing their wages as if nothing had happened. That's all very well, but no amount of Christian Science will help me to be fitted on while I'm here and my clothes are in Sackville Street, will it?
Ludovic. I think it might show a little natural anxiety and emotion. Renee. But I am showing emotion in 100 little different ways if you'd only notice them. To begin with, I'm walking about practically naked. This suit I've got on was paid for last month, so you can judge how old it is. And that reminds me. I wish you'd do something for me. Something awfully kind and pet lamb in my hour of trouble. Lend me that emerald scarf pin that you hardly ever wear. It would go so well with this tie, and I would forget how shabbily I'm dressed.
Ludovic. It would go so well that it would forget to find its way back again. Things that are lent to you, Renee, are like a hopeless passion that never returned. In light of past experience, I absolutely refuse to lend you a 30-guinea scarf pin. Renee. How true it is that when one weeps alone. Anyway, you might lend me your pearl and turquoise one. The pearl is a very poor one, and it can't be worth anything like 30 guineas. Ludovic. I don't see why I should be expected to make you a present of it, even if it only costs 5. Oh well, after all, I've only lost a mother. I make less fuss about that than you do the prospect of separation from a 5-guinea scarf pin.
You might show a little kindness to a poor grass orphan.
And Ludovic, now that you've practically given way on the matter, I want to turn your attention to something that's been worrying me dreadfully of late.
Ludovic. Oh, gracious, what have you been doing now?
Renee. Oh, it isn't now. The mischief was done 23 years ago, and that wasn't exactly my doing. It's just this, that I am 23 years old. If my mother had only held me over for a matter of 4 years, I should be 19 now, which is the only age worth being. Women always rush things so. I shouldn't mind so much being 23 if I had the money to carry it off well. The mater does the best she can for me. She can't afford me an allowance, but she borrows money whenever she can from friends and acquaintances and sends me haphazard checks. It's quite exciting getting a letter from home. Of course, that sort of thing can't go on indefinitely, and now that my only source of income has disappeared without leaving a postal address, things have nearly come to a crisis. One can't treat life indefinitely as a prolonged Saturday to Monday. There are always the Tuesdays to be reckoned with.
Ludovic. I don't like to suggest anything so unbecoming as occupation, but can't you manage to get entangled with a salary of some sort?
Renee. It's not so beastly easy. I've tried designing posters, and for 3 weeks I was assistant editor of a paper devoted to fancy mice. The devotion was all one-sided. Now, Ludovic, if you'd only do what you sometimes half promise to do, and make me your personal private secretary, and let me do parliamentary correspondence for you, and tell female deputations that they can't see you because you're in your bath, and all that sort of thing.
My dear boy, I am not at the present moment a member of Parliament. I'm not even standing as a candidate.
But Ludo, why aren't you? You know you've had a hankering that way for a long time, and you can easily afford it. And it isn't a difficult job. All one has to do is boil with indignation at discrete intervals over something. The Jews in Russia, or impurity in beer, or lawlessness in the Church of England. It doesn't matter particularly what, as long as you really boil. The public likes a touch of the samovar about its representatives. And then, if you want to be a parliamentary wit, that isn't difficult nowadays. If the government is making a mess of Persian affairs, just mew like a Persian kitten whenever a minister gets up to speak. It isn't anything really hard, I'm asking you.
Ludovic. Thanks very much for coaching me. But an indispensable preliminary to all this brilliance is that I should be elected.
Renee. You could easily get a seat down here if you wanted to. They've always wanted one of the Bavvels to stand, and old Spindleham is not likely to last another session, so the ball is practically at your feet.
Ludovic.
My dear Renee, under present circumstances, Briony would be an impossible headquarters for which to conduct an election campaign. Have you considered that Hortensia would have her finger in the pie all the time? She would speak at my meetings and pledge me to the most appalling social and political doctrines. She would get down the most unfortunate specimens of the party to support me. In fact, by the time election day came round, I should feel inclined to vote against myself. I should very probably be defeated. And if I got in, Hortensia would look at me as her nominee, sent to Westminster to represent her views on every subject under the sun.
I shan't have half an hour's moment of peace.
No, as long as Hortensia remains in the foreground, I shan't contest a seat in this part of the country. That's absolutely certain.
Renee. Ludovic, this Hortensia business is getting absurd. Everything you want to do down here, you run up against Hortensia, Mrs. Bavvel. When are you going to get Trevor married and the old woman dethroned?
My dear Renee. As if we haven't tried. Talk about bringing a horse to the water. We've brought water to the horse, gallons of it, and put it right under his nose. We've advertised eligible young women as if they had been breakfast foods.
Renee. And here I am, 23 years old, expected to wait indefinitely for my secretaryship and my daily bread until Trevor chooses to suit himself with a wife. It's ridiculous! That's the worst thing of you middle-aged folks, if I may say so without offence. You're so jolly well content to wait for things to happen. It's only the old and the quite young who really know the value of hurry.
Ludovic, but bless my soul, we can't compel Trevor to marry.
It's absurd of him to persist in celibacy that he isn't qualified for. He's decent enough in his way, but he hasn't got the strength of character to fit him for the graver responsibilities of bachelorhood. Can't he be rushed into marrying somebody?
Ludovic, crushing Trevor is not exactly a hopeful operation. It's rather suggestive of stampeding a tortoise. At the same time, I may tell you in confidence that something desperate of this nature is going to be tried tomorrow night in the absence of Hortensia and myself at Panfold. Renee.
Oh, Ludovic, what? You must ask Sybil or some of the others for details. I know nothing about it and entirely disapprove. But the idea originated with me. Hush!
Enter Hortensia, door right, back. Ludovic and Renee rise to their feet. Hortensia.
I want you to read my letter to the bishop. Oh, Mr. St. Gall. I didn't know the neighborhood was on with your presence. I needn't ask you if you're on a holiday. That is a permanent condition with you, I believe.
Ludovic. Mr. St. Gall has lost his mother. She's disappeared.
Disappeared? What an extraordinary thing to do. Had she any reasons for disappearing?
Renee.
Oh, several, but my mother would never do anything for a reason.
Hortensia.
But was anything troubling her?
Sits chair, center of stage. Renee.
Oh, nothing of that kind. She's one of those people with a conscience silk-lined throughout.
Ludovic.
Has she any relatives that she might have gone to?
Relatives? None that she's on speaking terms with. She was a Rutherford, you know, and the Rutherfords don't speak. There is a cousin of hers, a canon somewhere in the Midlands. He's got particular views. He believes in a future life. Or else he doesn't, I forget which. The martyr and he used to be rather chummy, but a hen came in between them. Hortensia.
A hen?
Renee.
Yes, a bronze Orpington or some such exotic breed. The martyr sold it to him at a rather exotic price. It turned out afterwards that the bird was an abstainer from the egg habit, and the canon wanted his money back. I read some of the letters that passed between them. I don't think the martyr is likely to have gone there.
Hortensia.
But there is an alarming side of this disappearance which you don't seem to appreciate. Something dreadful may have happened.
Renee.
It has. I had been measured for 2 lounge suits, one of them in a rather taking shade of copper beech, and they were to have been tried on for the first time this morning.
Ludovic, hurriedly. As everything is naturally rather at 6s and 7s at the Oaks, I have asked St. Gall to stay to lunch. I suppose we can give him a bite of something.
Hortensia, coldly. I am always glad to show hospitality to our friends, Ludovic. I'll read you my letter to the bishop at a more convenient moment. I'm just going to see Laura Gubbings. She's going out to Afghanistan as missionary, you know. That country's been so scandalously neglected in the way of missionary effort.
Ludovic.
There are considerable political and geographical difficulties in the way.
Hortensia. Not inseparable, however.
Ludovic. Perhaps not, but extremely likely to expand. We usually set on these affairs with the intention of devoting a certain amount of patient effort in making the natives reasonably glad at the introduction of mission work. Then we find ourselves involved in a much bigger effort to make them reasonably sorry for having killed the missionaries.
Hortensia.
Really, Ludovic, your reasoning is preposterous. I should be the first to oppose anything in the shape of armed aggression in Central Asia.
If you would oppose Mrs. Gubbing's missionary designs on that region, I should feel more comfortable.
Renee. I say, can't she take me with her? Hortensia. I don't really see in what capacity you could be included in a mission party.
Renee.
I could give my famous imitation of a Notch girl. That would fetch the Afghans and shoals, and then Mrs. Gubbings could hold overflow meetings and convert them.
Hortensia.
A Notch girl. Yes. I did it for some friends at St. Petersburg, and they just loved it. They said I got as far east as one could be expected to go. If I wasn't suffering under such a domestic bereavement, I'd do it for you now.
Hortensia.
Not at Briony, thank you. St. Petersburg may applaud such performances if it pleases. From the things I have heard from there,
Renee.
Oh, for the matter of that, the things one hears about the Afghans. There's a problem in that country.
Ludovic, hurriedly. In any case, Miss Gubbings is hardly likely to accept your collaborations in her labours.
Hortensia. Miss Gubbings is going out with a religious mission, not with a café chantant. From your description of your performance and from what I can guess of its nature, I don't think it would be likely to enhance either our moral or national reputation in the eyes of Amir's subjects. Rises from chair. A boy masquerading as a Notch girl. Exit Hortensia, door left front. Renee. Another avenue of employment closed to me.
By the way, where is Trevor? I want to ask him to lend me some sleeve links. These ones won't go at all with the scarf pin you're lending me.
Ludovic. You'll probably find him at the headkeeper's lodge. Lunch is at 1 sharp. Exit Renee, door left back. Now perhaps I can have a few moments to myself in the Prussian factory acts. Enter Sparrowby, right back. Sparrowby, seating himself astride a chair, center. I say, I wish you'd do something to help me. Ludovic looks over his shoulder and then back to pamphlet. If it's anything in the way of sleeve links or scarf pins, you're too late. Sparrowby. Oh, nothing of that sort. Or are you looking for a strayed relative? I can get you the address of a crystal gazer. Sparrowby. Oh no, I haven't lost anyone. Quite the reverse, dear old chap, I found her. Ludovic, half turning round. Not Mrs. St. Gall. Mrs. St. Gall. Dear, no. I found the one woman I could ever want to make my wife, and I want you to help me pull it off. Ludovic, returning to the perusal of his pamphlet. Oh, I see. Delighted to be of any use to you. I don't quite know how to pull these things off, and I'm rather occupied these days, but on Wednesday next, in the early part of the afternoon, I can spare an hour or two. Cuts page of pamphlet and continues reading. Sparrowby. Oh, but one can't fix a precise time for that sort of thing.
The trouble I'm in is that she won't be serious about it.
Ludovic. What does Bewegungssolgigkeit mean in English? Sparrowby. Oh, I don't know. It's a German word, isn't it? I don't know any German. Ludovic consults dictionary. She treats us as a sort of temporary infatuation on my part. She won't realize how hopelessly I'm in love with her. Ludovic, yawning. I thought it was the hopelessness of your suit that she did realize. Who is the lady? Sparrowby. Sybil Beaumont. Ludovic, leaping round in his seat and letting dictionary fall. Impossible. Out of the question. You mustn't think of marrying Sybil Beaumont. Sparrowby. But I can think of nothing else. Why mustn't I marry her? Ludovic. You must dismiss the matter completely from your mind. Go fishing in Norway or fall in love with a Corsico. There are heaps of Corsicos who are willing to marry commoners if you set the right way about it. But you mustn't think of Sybil Beaumont. Sparrowby. But what is the objection? Surely there's no madness in her family. Ludovic, contemplatively. Madness? No. Oh no. At least not that one knows of. Certainly her father lives at West Kensington, but he is sane on most other subjects. Sparrowby. Then what is this mysterious obstacle? There's nothing against me, I suppose. I'm fairly well off as far as income is concerned. Ah! But what sort of environment are you proposing to take this young girl, who has been carefully brought up and kept shielded from the coarser realities of life? Sparrowby. I live very quietly in the country and farm a few acres of my own. Precisely. I had heard stories to that effect. Now, my dear Sparrowby, the moral atmosphere of a farm, however amateur and non-paying the farm may be, is most unsuitable for a young woman who has been brought up in the seclusion of a town life. Farming involves cows, and I consider that cows carry the maternal instinct to an indelicate excess. They seem to regard the universe in general as an imperfectly weaned calf. And then poultry. You must admit that the private life of domestic barn-door fowl, well, there's remarkably little privacy about it. Sparrowby. But my dear Bavvel, and are you quite sure that you are free to pay court to Miss Beaumont? That you have no other entanglements? Sparrowby. Entanglements? Why, certainly not. Ludovic. Think a moment. What about Miss Clifford? Sparrowby. Agatha Clifford! You must be dreaming of having the ghost of an entanglement with her. I thought I saw you both on rather intimate terms at breakfast this morning. Sparrowby, indignantly. She upset a sardine onto my knees. I suppose you encouraged her to. Encouraged her? Why, it ruined a pair of flannel trousers. Ludovic. Well, I expect her sardine was just as irrevocably damaged. Anyway, you condoned her actions. I heard you tell her that it didn't matter. Sparrowby. Oh, I did say that. What else could one say? Ludovic. If anyone upset a sardine on my lap, I should find no difficulty in keeping the conversation from flagging. The difficulty would be to avoid saying too much. In your case, I think you were rather too eloquently silent. The spilling of a sardine onto a lap may seem a small thing to you, but you must remember that women attach more importance to these trifles than we do. Believe me, I have watched your perhaps unconscious attentions to Miss Clifford with interest, and if anything, I can spare me. But I assure you... Enter Agatha and Sybil, door left back. Agatha. Everything's going splendidly.
Everyone whom we've asked is coming, and Cook has been given a dark hint to have some fruit salad and mayonnaise and that sort of thing accidentally on hand. Oh, I forgot you weren't to know anything about it. Promise that you'll forget that you heard anything.
Ludovic, I assure you I heard nothing. I was struggling with some technicalities in a German pamphlet. Dear Miss Beaumont, do show me where I can find a better dictionary than this one.
Sybil, come along. There's one somewhere in the library.
And Agatha, Mr. Sparrowby wants you to help him dig up some ferns for a rockery he's making at home.
Ludovic holds door left front open for Sybil. Both exit.
Sparrowby.
I say, Agatha, by all means, let's come now. I love rooting up ferns. Here are some baskets. Fishes 3 large garden baskets out of chest. Sparrowby, but it's nearly lunchtime and I don't really... Never mind lunch. There's sure to be something cold that we can pack at a foot late. Come on, the trowels are out in the tool shed. I know a lovely damp pool where we could grub about for hours.
Sparrowby,
but I've got rheumatism. Agatha, so have I. Come on. Gives him 2 baskets to carry out and leads the way off by door right back. Curtain.
Act 2. The Hall, Briony Manor. Claire and Trevor seated on couch, center of stage. Enter Agatha, door left, passes behind them. All 3 dressed in sheet costume, with hood thrown back, no masks. Agatha.
I say, Trevor, it's going splendidly.
Exit Agatha, door right, back. Claire.
You ask me, it's going to be as flat as can be. No one seems to want to dance, and Cook is scared to death and has only sent us up half the amount of supper that we asked for.
Trevor. There's enough to drink anyhow. I saw to that. I went down to the cellar myself. Claire.
Yes. And the result will be that just when we want to be hurrying everyone off the premises, they'll be getting festive and reckless. And your august and awful mother will run up against half of them at the doorstep, or meet them in the drive.
Enter door right back, veiled figure, who glides up to them.
Hello. Who's this? Sybil unmasks and throws back hood. Oh, Sybil. I might have guessed. Sybil, seating herself armchair center of stage. I fled away from that tiresome Sparrowby person who keeps on pestering me to set out with him. Claire, dear, do go and relieve Evelyn. She has played about 6 dances running. Claire. Oh, Evelyn would play all night without feeling tired. Rises. But one excuse is as good as another, I suppose. Walks towards door right. Sybil. I don't know what you mean. Exit Claire, door right back. Sybil. It's going awfully flat. Trevor, lighting cigarette. Oh, a frightful fizzle. I think everyone is a bit scared at what they're doing. Sybil. I know I am. There'll be fine fireworks tomorrow when Her Majesty gets to hear of it. Trevor. Fireworks? There'll be a full-sized earthquake. I think I shall go cub hunting if there's a meat within reasonable distance. Sybil. You won't find many of us here when you return. We shall be cleared out in a batch like Chinese coolies. Trevor, why on earth don't you marry and get rid of this one-woman rule at Briony? With all due respect, your mother is no joke. She's perfectly awful. Trevor. Oh, I suppose I shall marry somebody someday. But it's the choosing business that is so beastly complicated. Think of the millions and millions of nice women there are in the world. And then of the fact that one can only marry one of them. It makes marrying an awfully ticklish matter. It's like choosing which puppies you're going to keep out of a large litter. You can never be sure that you haven't drowned the wrong ones. Sybil. Oh, but if you go on those lines, you'll never marry anyone. You should just have a look around at the girls you personally know and like and make your choice from one of them. You'd soon find out whether she responded or not. I believe in grasping one's nettle. Trevor. But supposing there are half a dozen nettles and you don't know which to grasp. Sybil. Oh, come, we're getting on. Half a dozen is better than millions and millions. And there must always be someone whom you prefer out of the half dozen. There's Agatha, for instance. Of course she is your cousin, but that doesn't really matter. And in her way, she is not a bad sort. Trevor. She passed through the hall just before you came in. If I'm to ask her to marry me, I'd better go and do it now before I forget. Oh, don't go and propose to her just because I suggested it. You'd make me feel an awful matchmaker, and I should never forgive myself if it turned out wrong. Besides, I I doubt very much if she'd make the sort of mistress you'd want for Briony. One has to think of so many things, hasn't one? Trevor. Precisely my standpoint. And if Agatha turned out a disappointment, I couldn't give her away to the gardener's boy like a unsatisfactory puppy. You see, it isn't so easy to grasp the nettle when you really come to do it. Oh well, Agatha doesn't exhaust the list. There's Claire, for instance. She's got some good points, don't you think? Trevor. You don't say so with much conviction. Sybil. I'm awfully good pals with Claire, but that doesn't prevent me from recognizing that she's got a rather queer temper at times. The things she says sometimes are simply hateful, and she's not a bit straightforward. I can tell you of little things she's done. Enter from door center veiled figure. Who on earth is this? Sparrowby throws off hood and mask and seats himself on small chair facing Sybil. Sparrowby. I've been following all sorts of figures about, thinking they were you, but I knew all the time they couldn't be you because I didn't feel the thrill when I was near them. I always feel the thrill when I'm near you. Sybil, viciously. I wish you never felt thrills then. Sparrowby. You're dreadfully unkind, Sybil. But I know you don't mean what you say. Sybil. Sorry you find my conversation meaningless. Sparrowby. Oh, I didn't mean that. We seem equally unfortunate in our meetings. Sparrowby. I say, Sybil, I wish you'd take me a little more seriously. Sybil. One would think you were an attack of measles. Enter Mrs. Volpe with Drummond, door left, both unhooded. She catches sight of trio and rushes up. To Sparrowby. Naughty man, you know you promised me the kitchen lances. Come along, hurry. Sparrowby, rising unwillingly. They're playing a waltz now. Mrs. Volpe. They're getting ready for the lances. Come on. Exeunt Mrs. Volpe, Sparrowby, and Drummond, door right back. Sybil. The Volpe woman is rather a brick at times. I say. Trevor. During Sparrowby dialogue, Trevor has fallen asleep, wakes hurriedly. I nearly went to sleep. Please excuse my manners. I was up awfully early this morning. Sybil. Well, do keep awake now. We're in the middle of a most interesting conversation. Trevor. Let's see, You were recommending to me to marry Claire Hennessy. Sybil. Oh, well, I don't think I went as far as that. Claire and I are first-rate pals, and I should awfully like to see her make a good marriage, but I'd be rather sorry for her husband all the same. If anything rubs her the wrong way, her temper goes queer at once, like milk and thunder time, and she simply says the most ill-natured things. Trevor. That's another ungraspable nettle, then. I told you it wasn't so jolly easy. But, Trevor, there are surely others. Only you're too lazy to think of them. Trevor. As to thinking of them, I'm not too lazy to do that. It's the further stages I'm deficient in. Of course I sympathize with your difficulty. I wish I could find you someone really nice, someone who would enter into all your pursuits and share your ambitions and be a genuine companion to you. I hate that sort. Do you? How funny. At least, I don't know, I think I rather agree with you. Some women make dreadful nuisances of themselves that way. Well, you don't give me much help in choosing you a wife. Trevor. What do you think of Mrs. Volpe? What? That woman with nasturtium-coloured hair and barmaid manners. Surely you're not attracted to her. Trevor. I didn't say I was. I asked you what you thought of her. Oh. As to that, not a bad sort in her way, I suppose. Some people call her a rough diamond. If it was my declaration, I should call her a defensive spade. But anyhow, she's married, so it doesn't come into our discussion. Trevor. I want to tell you something. Something that concerns you alone. Sybil. What is it? Your hair's coming down behind. Oh, bother. It's that horrid hood arrangement. I'll fly upstairs and put it right. Rises. I say, Trev, there's a much nicer sitting-out place on the landing, near that old carved press where the tiresome Sparrowby person won't find me. Come up in 2 minutes' time. There's a dear. Trevor. Righto. Sybil. Now don't go to sleep. Exit Sybil, up staircase left. Enter Agatha, door right back. Passes along back of stage. Agatha. Everything is going swimmingly. It's a huge success. Exit Agatha, door left back. Enter Renee, door center, in evening dress with smoking jacket, carrying bottle of wine, wine glass, some grapes, and peaches. Renee. Going rather flat, isn't it? Trevor. Frightful fizzle. I'm so sleepy myself I can only just keep my eyes open. Was up at the farm awfully early this morning. Renee. Some short-horn bantam was going to have young ones, I suppose. In the country, animals are always having young ones. Passes the time away, I suppose. I know a lady in Warwickshire who runs a rabbit farm. She has musical boxes set up over the hutches. Trevor. Musical boxes? Yes, they play the wedding march from Lohengrin at decent intervals. I'm going to ask you an extremely personal question. If it has anything to do with spare shirt studs, Renee, who is delicately feeding himself while talking. Don't be silly. It hasn't. I want to know, are you happy? Trevor. Immensely. Renee, disappointedly. Are you? Why? One never has any definite reason for being happy. It's simply a temperamental accident in most cases. I've nothing to worry me, no money troubles, no responsibilities. Why should I be anything else but happy? You ought to marry. Trevor. You think that would improve matters? It would elevate you. Suffering is a great purifier. Trevor. You're not a very tempting advocate of matrimony. I don't recommend it except in desperate cases. Yours is distinctly a desperate case. You ought to marry, if only for your mother's sake. Trevor. My mother? I don't know that she is particularly anxious to see me mated just yet. Your mother is one of those proud, silent women who seldom indicate their wishes in actual words. My dear Renee, my mother may be proud, but where her wishes are concerned, she is not inclined to be silent. At any rate, an unmarried man of marriageable age is always a great anxiety. There's never any knowing what impossible person he may fix his fancy on. As old Lady Clotsam said to me the other day, apropos of her eldest son, if Robert chooses a wife for himself, it's certain to be some demi-mondaine with the merest superficial resemblance to a lady. Whereas if I choose a wife for him, I should select someone who would at least be a lady, with a mere superficial resemblance of a demi-mondaine. Trevor. Poor Lady Clotsam. Her children are rather a trial to her, I imagine. Her youngest boy had to leave the country rather hurriedly, hadn't he? Yes, poor dear. He's on a ranch somewhere in the wilds of Mexico. Conscience makes cowboys of us all. Unfortunately, it's other people's consciences that give all the trouble. There ought to be a law compelling everyone to keep his conscience under proper control, like chimneys that have to consume their own smoke. And then Gladys, who was the most hopeful member of the family, went and married a colonial bishop. That really finished Lady Clotsam. And she said to me, I always class colonial bishops with folk songs and peasant industries and all those things that one comes across in drawing room meetings. I never expected to see them brought into one's family. This is what comes of letting young girls read Ibsen and Mrs. Humphrey Ward. An unearthly, long, drawn-out howl is heard. Trevor, sitting up. What on earth? Renee. Only the idiotic Drummond boy who pretends he's the hound of the Baskervilles. Enter Agatha, door left. Runs giggling across stage, pursued by Drummond in sheet with phantom hound mask on head. Exeunt both, door right back. Trevor, rising slowly. By Jove, I forgot I'd promised to go upstairs. Sybil will be fuming her head off. Renee. We can't get a rubber of bridge presently, can we? Trevor. Afraid not. The woman will be rather mad if we shirked dancing. Draws himself slowly together and lounges up staircase left. Exit. Enter Sparrowby, door right back. Sparrowby. Why aren't you rigged out like the rest of us, St. Gol? Takes Trevor's seat on couch. Renee. Well, for one thing, I'm in platonic mourning, having partially lost a mother, so it would hardly be the thing. And another reason is that the hood arrangement would ruffle one's hair so. Sparrowby. As if that mattered a bit. You're absurdly particular about your appearance and your clothes and how your tie is tied in about your hair. Look at me. It doesn't take me 2 minutes in the morning to do my hair. So I should imagine. Isn't there a proverb, a fool and his hair are soon parted? Sparrowby. I say, you're beastly rude. I know I am. My mother was a Wurzelford, and the Wurzelfords have no manners. I'm sorry I called you a fool, though, because I want you to do something really kind for me. Trevor has suggested a game of bridge, and I don't want to back out of playing. The trouble is that I haven't a coin worth speaking about on me. If you'd be awfully pet lamb and lend me something, I dislike lending on principle. It generally leads to unpleasantness. Really, this worship of mammon is getting to be the curse of the age. People make more fuss about lending a few miserable guineas than the Sabine women did about being borrowed by the Romans. I know a lady of somewhat mature age who took a rather fancy to me last season, and in a fit of sheer absence of mind, she lent me £10. She's got quite a comfortable income, but I declare she thinks more on that lost tenner than the hundreds and hundreds that she's never lent me. It's become quite a monomania with her. It's our one subject of conversation whenever we meet. Sparrowby, don't you intend on paying her back? Certainly not. Her loss makes her more beautiful. It brings an effective touch of tragedy into an otherwise empty life. I can no more think of her apart from her mourn for alone than one can think of Suez without the canal or Leda without the swan. Sparrowby, if that's your view about your obligations, I certainly shan't lend you anything. By the way, where is Sybil Beaumont? She's been sitting out about 4 dances with Trevor. It's about my turn now. Renee. Sybil has got a bad headache. She's lying down for a few minutes. Sparrowby. Where? I particularly want to see her. In the billiard room, and she particularly doesn't want to see anyone. But I only want... Enter Claire and Agatha, door right back. Renee. Agatha! Sparrowby is complaining that he's got no one to dance with. Agatha. Come along. They're just going to try that new Paris dance. I can't pronounce it. Sparrowby. But I can't dance it. Agatha. Neither can I! Come on! But I say... Exit Agatha, dragging Sparrowby off, door right back. Renee. Whew! Thank goodness he's out of the way. People who make a principle of not lending money are social pests. Claire, seating herself on couch. This is going to be a dismal failure. By the way, have you seen Trevor anywhere? Renee. Yes, he's turned rather giddy with the dancing, I suppose, so he's taken a turn or two out in the air. Claire. Is he alone? Renee. Oh, quite. So am I for the moment. Do stay and talk to me. Claire. He must be interesting, then. After sitting out successfully with Sparrowby and the 2 Drummond boys, I feel that there's nothing left in the way of dull and trivial conversation to listen to. While she is talking, Renee hands her half of the remaining peach and resumes his seat. Let's talk about ourselves. That's always interesting. Claire. I suppose you mean let's talk about yourself? No, I'd rather much dissect your character. I find some good points in it. Claire. Do tell me what they are. You have a rich aunt who is childless. She is a great aunt. All the better. That sort of thing doesn't spoil by being kept in the family for a generation or two. The greater the aunt, the greater the prospect. And what other good points do you find in me? I think I'm nearly exhausted the list. I don't find you a bit interesting. Well, be patient for a moment. I'm going to say something quite personal and interesting. Will you marry me? The question is sudden, I admit, but these things are best done suddenly. I suppose it was the mention of your great aunt that suggested it. The answer is equally sudden. It's no. Are you quite sure you mean that? Convinced. How thoroughly sensible of you. So many girls in your place would have said yes. Claire. I dare say our sex hasn't much reputation for discrimination. I didn't know that marrying was in your line. It isn't. I dislike the idea of wives about a house. They accumulate dust. Besides, so few of the really nice women in my set could afford to marry me. Claire. From the point of view of reputation? Oh, I wasn't thinking of that. At 23, one is supposed to have conquered every earthly passion. Of course, it's the fashion in statesmanship nowadays to allow the conquered to have the upper hand. Claire. A convenient fashion that saves a lot of bother. Tell me, taking me apart from my great aunt, are you pleased to consider that I should make a satisfactory wife? Satisfactory wives aren't made, they're invented. Chiefly by married men. But as things go, I think we should have made what is called a well-sorted couple. I should have taught you in time to be as thoroughly selfish as myself, and then each would have looked upon our own particular interests without having need to fear that the other was likely to suffer from any neglect. Claire. There is much to be said for that point of view. It's the imperfectly selfish souls that cause themselves and others so many heartburnings. People who make half-sacrifices for others always find that it's the unfinished half that's being looked at. Naturally, they come to regard themselves as unappreciated martyrs. By the way, I may as well tell you before you find out. Trevor isn't out of doors. He's sitting out with Sybil somewhere on the landing. Claire, half rising from seat. Beast! Why did you tell me he'd gone out? Well, the fact of the matter is, I thought that if the two were left alone undisturbed for half an hour or so, one or the other of them might propose. Oh. That's the game, is it? And has Sybil enlisted your services in this precious stalking movement?
Oh dear no. I'm merely working in good cause. Someone's got to marry Trevor, and the sooner the better. Personally, I don't think it's very hopeful, but the whole motive of this otherwise idiotic dance is to head Trevor into a matrimonial ambush of some sort. And he's so superbly sleepy that there's just a chance of it coming off. But I'm not sanguine. Claire, if he is to be rushed into marrying someone, I don't see why I shouldn't be in the running as well as anyone else. Exactly what William was saying to me this morning.
William? The page boy?
Yes. He's rather keen on seeing you Mrs. Trevor Bavvel.
Claire, that's very sweet of him, but I didn't know he took such an intelligent interest in the matter.
It's not altogether disinterested. It seems they've got a half-crown sweepstakes on the event in the servants' hall, and he happened to draw you, so naturally he's in a bit of a flutter on your behalf.
I didn't know we were the centre of so much speculation. Oh, mercy on us, what would Hortensia say if she knew she was nurturing a living sweepstakes under her roof? And is William good enough to consider that I have a fair sporting chance of pulling it off?
I fancy he's rather despondent. He said you didn't seem to try as hard as some of the others were doing. He puts your chair as near Trevor's as possible at prayers, but that's all he's able to do personally.
The little devil!
I believe that if the Volpe woman wasn't handicapped with a preliminary husband, she'd carry Trevor off against all competitors. She's just got the bounce that appeals to a lazy, slow-witted bachelor.
Claire, there's something I particularly object to in that woman. She always talks to me with just a suspicion of a furtive sneer in her voice that I find extremely irritating. I don't know why Agatha inflicted her on us.
Enter Agatha, right back. Agatha.
What's that you're saying about me?
Claire.
Only wondering what induced you to cart Mrs. Volpe down here.
Oh, come, she's not a bad soul, taking her all round. Seats herself on couch.
We are all of us as God made us.
Renee. In Mrs. Volpe's case, some recognition is due to her maid as a collaborator.
Agatha. You're all very ill-natured about her. Anyway, this dance was her idea.
Claire.
Yes, and a horror mess is going to land us all in. I daren't think of tomorrow. By the afternoon, the news will have spread over the greater part of Somersetshire that costume ball's been given at Briony in the temporary absence of Mrs. Bavvel.
Agatha.
I say, do you think she'll be very furious? If Hortensia is more intolerant on one question than any other, it's on the subject of what she calls mixed dancing. I remember a county fete at Crocombe where she vetoed the project of a maypole dance by children of 6 and 7 years old until absolutely assured that the sexes would dance apart. Some of the smaller children were rather ambiguously dressed and were too shy to tell us their names. And the curate and I had a long and delicate task in sorting the he's from the she's. One 4-year-old baffled our most patient researchers and finally had to dance by itself around a maypole of its own.
Agatha.
I'm beginning to get dreadfully frightened about tomorrow. Can't we water it down a bit and pretend that we had games and Sir Roger de Coverley and that sort of thing?
Claire.
We shall have to tone things down as much as possible. But Hortensia will hold an inquiry into the whole matter and drag the truth out by inches. She'll probably dismiss half the servants and have the morning room repapered. As for us,
Renee. There's a very good up train at 3:15.
Agatha. But I haven't made arrangements for going anywhere. It will be most inconvenient.
Claire.
On the morrow of an unsuccessful coup d'etat, one generally travels first and makes one's arrangements afterwards.
A prolonged howl heard.
Renee.
The idiotic Drummond boy again. Enter Drummond, door right, back. Drummond.
I say you make nice cheerful hosts,
sitting there like a lot of moping owls. Do come and buck things up a bit. There are only 2 couples dancing.
Renee, tragically.
Yes, let us go and dance on the edge of our volcano.
Agatha. Oh, don't. I feel quite creepy. It reminds me of that Duchess person's ball on the eve of Waterloo.
Exit Drummond, Renee, Agatha, door right back. Claire remains seated. Enter Mrs. Volpe, centre.
All alone, Miss Hennessy? By the way, where is that dear boy Trevor? I believe he's upstairs. And I don't think he wishes to be disturbed. I suppose that means that you're waiting to catch him when he comes down? And that you don't want to be disturbed? Oh, please put that construction on if it amuses you. I shouldn't like to think that you weren't enjoying yourself. Oh, I'm enjoying myself right enough, Miss Hennessy. Watching some of the little by-plays that's going on.
Seats herself.
It is Miss Hennessy, isn't it?
Claire.
What do you mean? Oh, well, only that we've met before, At least I've seen you before. Though you probably didn't see me. You were writing your name in the visitor's book at the Grand Anchor Hotel in Bristol, just about 6 weeks ago.
Claire.
I did stop there one night about 6 weeks ago. I don't remember seeing you there.
Mrs. Volpe.
I remember not only seeing you, but the names you wrote in the book. Hennessy wasn't one of them. Nor Miss anything either.
Claire.
Clever of you to remember. You seem to have a good head for business. Other people's business. Oh, well, I suppose it was the innocent vagueness of the names you had put down that arrested my attention. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, London. Your companion had gone upstairs with the luggage, so I didn't see Mr. Smith, and somehow at the end I had a feeling that I wasn't seeing Mrs. Smith. At least not the permanent Mrs. Smith.
Claire.
It sounds rather crude and compromising as you put it, I admit, but the explanation is not really very dreadful. Only,
Mrs. Volpe.
Only you don't feel disposed to give an explanation at such short notice. You're quite right. Second thoughts are usually more convincing in such cases.
Claire.
Well, to be candid, I don't see that my travelling adventures are any particular concern of yours.
Mrs. Volpe.
Perhaps you're right. I dare say they more immediately concern the lady whose guest you are. Shall I raise her curiosity on the subject? As you've got such a satisfactory explanation ready, you can have no objection, I suppose.
Claire.
You know Mrs. Bavvel well enough to know that what might seem a harmless escapade to ordinary judges would not be regarded so leniently by her.
Mrs. Volpe.
And Mr. Trevor? He doesn't share his mother's prejudices. You won't mind if I let him into our little secret about the Smith menage?
Claire, rising from her seat.
Miss Volpe, what particular gratification do you find in threatening to make mischief between me and my friends? It shows you up in a rather bad light, and I don't really see what you expect to gain by it.
Mrs. Volpe.
Simply, my dear girl, we happen to be interested in the same man.
Claire.
You mean Trevor? Of course. I know perfectly well that all you girls are hanging round here for a chance at snapping him up, and I'm clever enough to see which one of you is likely to succeed. It won't be Sybil Beaumont, whatever one may say.
Claire.
In any case, you can scarcely regard yourself as a competitor, because of being already married, you mean? Well, I don't mind telling you I have more definite news about my husband's condition than I pretend to have. He was past all chance of recovery when the last mail went out. I'm too honest to pretend to be anything but glad. If you knew the life we've had. I've been a lonely woman since the day I married Peter. And now I don't intend being lonely anymore. As soon as I set eyes on Trevor Bavvel, I knew he was just the sort of man I wanted to begin life with over again.
Claire.
And do you suppose that you are so obviously his conception of the ideal lifetime mate that he'll throw himself at your feet as soon as he knows you are free to marry him?
Mrs. Volpe.
Oh, my dear. Most things in life that are worth having have been worked for. I've made a good beginning by enlisting his sympathy as a fellow conspirator over this dance. The worse row we get into, over it the better. And when my husband's estate has been straightened out, I shan't be badly off, and I shall come to his neighbourhood and do a little hunting and give bridge parties and all that sort of thing. Provided nothing happens in the meantime, I fancy I stand a very fair chance of pulling it off.
Claire.
I see.
Mrs. Volpe.
Ah, you do see, do you? You understand now why I want your flirtation with Trevor to be nipped in the bud, and why I'm prepared to nip it myself if necessary with that little story of the Grand Anchor Hotel.
Claire.
You're making one little miscalculation, Miss Volpe. Trevor was a public school boy. And in English public school tradition, the spy and the talebearer don't occupy a very exalted position.
Mrs. Volpe.
Oh, you may call me hard names, but you can't wriggle away from me in that fashion. I've got you in my grip. So, either you leave the field clear for me, or the story of your visit to the Grand Anchor Hotel with a gentleman whom, for want of fuller information, we will call Mr. Smith, becomes public property.
Claire.
Someone is coming downstairs. Shall we go and see how the dancing is going on? They're playing that Bulgarian march.
Mrs. Volpe.
Oh yes, let's go and hear it. I love Slav music. It takes one out of oneself so.
Claire.
Which is sometimes an advantage.
Exit Volpe and Claire. Enter down staircase left, Sybil and Trevor.
Trevor. I say, it's getting nearly time to call this off. Sybil. Oh, nonsense. It's only just 10. Your mother is delivering an address, and she's not given to cutting her words short on these occasions, I believe. Trevor. Half an hour more, then. And let's make it go with a bit more fling for the wind-up. Sybil. Righto. Enter Sparrowby left. Lord, here's that pestering idiot again. Sparrowby. Oh! At last I found you. Are you better? Sybil. Better? Sparrowby. I was told you were lying down in the billiard room with a bad headache. Sybil. Who on earth told you that? Sparrowby. St. Gall. Sybil. Oh. Renee. Never believe a word he says. I'm in my usual health, but I'm frightfully hungry. Trevor, do go and forage for something edible. I was too excited to eat much at dinner, and I know I shan't dare to come down to breakfast tomorrow. I'll wait for you here. Trevor. I'll go and parley with the cook. Exit Trevor, door center. Sparrowby. What have you been doing all this time? Sybil, seating herself on couch. Oh, don't ask me. Sitting upstairs with Trevor and trying to keep him from going to sleep. I assure you it wasn't amusing. Sparrowby. I should never go to sleep if I were by your side. Sybil. What an inconvenient husband you would be. Oh, I wish you wouldn't always be fooling. Seats himself beside her. You don't know how much I love you. Of course I don't. I've only got your word for it that you care at least a bit for me. Now if you were to do something to prove it, I'd do anything. Well, do something that would give you a name in the world. For instance, paint pictures and have them exhibited at the Royal Academy. It would be something to talk about when one went there. Sparrowby. But I can't paint. Oh, I don't think that matters as long as you exhibited. Of course I wouldn't so. Or, why not found a religion like Muhammad and Wesley and those sort of people did? Sparrowby. But you can't found religions offhand. You want inspiration and enthusiasm and disciples and all manner of special conditions. Well, then you could invent a new system of scoring at county cricket or breed a new variety of fox terrier. But it would take years and years to produce a new variety. Sybil. I would wait. Oh, so patiently. Sparrowby. Sybil. If I was successful in breeding a new kind of fox terrier, would you really marry me? I wouldn't exactly marry you, but I would buy some of the puppies from you. I've got an awfully jolly little fox terrier at home. If you tell her the Kaiser's coming or Roosevelt's coming, she lies quite still. But if you say King Edward's coming, she jumps up at once. Isn't it clever? I taught her myself with gingerbread biscuits. Sparrowby. Won't you realize that I'm asking you to be my wife? Of course I realize it. You've asked me so often that I'm beginning to expect nothing else. I wish you would vary it a little and ask me something different. Only, don't ask me that dreadful thing about this man's father was my father's only son. It nearly gives me brain fever. I wonder if you have a heart at all. Of course. I've got the usual fittings. It's very rude of you to suggest that I'm jerry-built. But look here. Joking apart, do something to oblige me. Go and dance with poor Evelyn Bray. She's been at the piano all evening and hasn't had a scrap of dancing herself. If I do, will you give me a dance afterwards? I'll give you 2. Sparrowby, rising from a seat. You angel. I wish you'd always be as kind. Exit Sparrowby, door right back. Sybil, hearing someone come in. Is that you, Trevor? I'm getting rather ravenous. Enter Agatha, door center. Oh, Lord. Agatha. Hello, Sybil. Have you seen Trevor? Sybil. No, I think he's dancing. He hasn't been in the dancing room for about an hour. Neither have you. Seats herself on chair right of couch. Sybil. I'm so hot, I'm sitting out here to get cool. I suppose it's the excitement. I say, do go and help Evelyn at the piano. She's getting quite fagged out, poor dear. Agatha, acidly. I've just played them a polka. Evelyn hasn't been near the piano for the last half hour. If you hadn't been sticking to Trevor like a drowning leech, you might have known that. Sybil, furiously. I haven't been sticking to him. And leeches don't drown anyway. Oh, I'm not up in their natural history. I only know they stick like mud. I'll say a floating leech if you like. It so happens I've been listening to marriage proposals from that pestering Sparrowby all evening. Agatha, I've had the infliction of dancing with him no more than 4 times, my dear, and he kept on complaining that he couldn't find you. Don't be disheartened. Accidents will happen to the most accomplished fibbers. Sybil, why is it that the plain women are always so venomous? Oh, well, if you're going to be introspective, my dear. Enter Trevor, door center. Trevor, all I could raise was some cold rice pudding and a bottle of pickled walnuts. If there's anything I detest in this world, it's rice pudding. Agatha, going over to table. I loathe rice pudding. It's so wholesome. On the other hand, I simply adore pickled walnuts. Helps herself. Trevor, won't you have some, Sybil? Helps himself. Sybil, rising from seat. I'm not going to stay here to be insulted. I've been called a liar and a leech. Agatha, I said fibber, my dear, not liar. Exit Sybil, door right back. Trevor, have you two been having a slanging match? Oh, no. Only poor Sybil is so dreadfully short-tempered she can't take anything in good part. She's a dear, sweet girl, one of the very best, but I should be awfully sorry for any fellow who married her. That reminds me, Trevor. You ought to marry. Helps herself to another walnut. Trevor, there's a great deal to be said for that point of view. And as far as I can see, there's no particular likelihood of it being left unsaid. Helps himself to walnut. I suppose the difficulty is to think of anyone you could care for sufficiently. Trevor. Have anything to say against Mrs. Volpe? Good heavens! Mrs. Volpe! That vulgar, overdressed pair with the manners of a Cockney sparrow? I should think she began life in a cheap jack store. Surely you can't be thinking seriously of her. I asked you if you had anything to say against her. Considering the short notice, you managed very well. Wasn't you who brought her down here? Agatha, helping herself to walnut. Well, yes, I suppose I did. Somehow in Folkestone she didn't seem such an awful rotter. Anyway, she's got a husband. No, the woman for you must be one of great similarity of tastes. On the contrary, I avoid that kind. At the present moment, I regard you with something bordering on aversion. Stirs frantically in jar. Agatha. Got me with aversion! My dear Trevor, if it hadn't been for our duplicate passion of picked walnuts, this cruel tragedy wouldn't have happened. There's not one left. No, the woman I marry must have an unbridled appetite for rice pudding. Agatha, dubiously. I dare say with some rice pudding, nicely cooked, wouldn't be a bad eating. Begins agitating spoon listlessly through the rice pudding dish. Trevor. That is not the spirit in which my ideal woman must approach rice pudding. She must eat it with an avidity that will almost create scandal. She must devour it secretly in dark corners. She must buy it in small quantities from chemists on the plea that she has neuralgia. Such a woman I could be happy with. Agatha, while talking, is waving spoon in air. She might be odious in other respects. Trevor. One must not expect to find perfection. I wish you would be more serious when we are discussing a serious subject. I suppose matrimony is a more serious affair for us poor women than for you men. Trevor. How can I discuss anything seriously when you're covering me with fragments of rice pudding? Oh, you poor dear, I'm so sorry. Let me rub you down. No, don't you. I won't be massaged with rice pudding. Enter Mrs. Volpe, door center. Mrs. Volpe. What are you two playing at? Only trying to find new uses for cold rice pudding. I was firmly convinced as a child that it could be primarily intended as a food. Mrs. Volpe. Renee is just going to do his Notch Girl dance. He wants you to go and play tom-tom music, Agatha. Oh, bother, Renee. Why was I born good-natured? Exit Agatha right. Trevor. Stay and talk to me, Mrs. Volpe. I've seen the Notch dance before. Mrs. Volpe. You're such a sought-after young man that I feel I oughtn't to be taking you away from the others. Trevor. I'd rather sit and talk with you than any of the others. Dear me. I thought you never worked up the energy to make pretty speeches. I don't. It's mere sheer laziness that makes me blurt out the truth on this occasion. And am I really to suppose that this is the truth that you would rather sit with me than with any of the others? You are the only woman of the lot that is safe to sit out with. Perhaps you are not very securely married, but you are not exactly floating loose, ready to take advantage of the artless innocence of a young bachelor. And is that where my superior fascination begins and leaves off? That's where it begins. I didn't say it left off there. Now don't try and talk pretty. You know you're not capable of sustained effort in that direction. Nothing is more discouraging than to have a man say that you've ruined his life and then to find out that you haven't even given him after-dinner insomnia. Oh, I promise to keep awake. Only it's rather soothing and sedative to talk to a charming woman who has no intention of marrying one. You don't intend to marry me, do you? My dear Trevor, I have intended marrying you ever since I first saw you. They say the road to matrimony is paved with good intentions, don't they? I've heard it put in a more roundabout manner. In your case, isn't there a rather big obstacle in the road? You mean Peter? Trevor. I suppose he is a factor in the situation. Of course he is my husband. And it's my duty to think of him before anyone else. But I'm not going to be a hypocrite and waste sentiment in that direction. Our married life has been about as odious an experience as I wish to go through. Trevor. Still, I suppose an even unsatisfactory marriage has to be taken into account. There is no first offenders clause in our marriage system. However uncongenial he may be, Peter remains your husband. Well, that's the question. Peter was always selfish, but double pneumonia on top of nervous breakdown may have overcome even his obstinate temperament. Why, at any moment I might get what I should be obligated to call in public bad news. So you see, I'm not so safe a person to sit and make pretty speeches to as you thought. And now I suppose my fascination has melted into thin air. No, I shall merely have to label you dangerous along with the others. Ah, Trevor, I'm much more dangerous than any of the others if you only knew. Why so? Because I really want you for your own self. The others are all after you for family reasons and general conscience and that sort of thing. I want you because, well, I've seen a bit of the world, and I know the worth of a man like you, who can't be flabbergasted or humbugged or led by... Hush! Someone's coming. Enter William, door left. Just clear these things away, William. I should like my mother to find the hall in its usual state. Now, Mrs. Volpe, I must be going into the dance. I've shirked my duty most horribly. Mrs. Volpe, well, let's have a dreamy waltz together. To set the seal on what we've been talking about. We are friends, aren't we? Exeunt Trevor and Mrs. Volpe, door right. William gathers up empty plates. Enter Renee, door center. Renee, helping himself to wine. William! Can you find me any more peaches? William.
No, sir, I brought you the last.
Renee, arranging himself comfortably on couch.
Well, try to discover a fig or a banana somewhere, do. And if you remind me tomorrow, I'll ask Mr. Ludovic to give you that yellow striped waistcoat that he hardly ever wears.
Thank you, sir. You don't know of no one wanting a page, do you, sir? Renee. Why? Are you thinking of leaving? Will. I expect I shall have to leave without having time to do any thinking about it, sir. When Mrs. Bavvel comes to hear about our goings-on behind her back, she'll behave like one of those cyclopses that sweeps away whole villages. Renee. Cyclone, William. Not cyclops. That's it, sir. Cyclone. And I expect I shall be among the sweepings. I've no particular fancy to be going home out of situation just now, sir. Home life is a different thing with you gentry. You're so comfortable and heathen. Renee. When one comes to think of it, I suppose we are. It's a rather overcrowded profession all the same. While William is talking, Renee helps himself to Trevor's Russian cigarettes and fills his case. Ah, sir. You haven't known what it is to be brought up by respectable parents. Renee. Really, William? My father's Plymouth brethren, sir. Not that I've anything to say against Plymouth as a religion, but in a small cottage it takes up a lot of room. My father believed in smiting sin whenever he found it. What I complained of was that he
always seem to find it in the same place. Plymouth narrows the perspective. Between gentry religion and cottage religion, there's the same differences between keeping ferrets and living in a hutch with one. Exit William, door center. Enter the first four in couples by door right back. Trevor and Mrs. Volpe, Drummond and Claire, and Sybil and Sparrowby and Agatha, prancing through hall and singing Non je ne marche pas, which is heard being played on piano off. Agatha to Renee. You slacker! Come and join in! They exunt in same order through door left, still singing. Renee to himself. I'm of far too tidy a disposition to leave half-empty bottles lying about. Did I hear wheels? Rises and listens. Stop your squalling, you people! Fancy I heard wheels. Listens again. My nerves are getting quite jumpy. Reseats himself. Hall door right thrown open. Enter Hortensia, who turns to someone in porch. Hortensia. Ludovic, quick, catch the carriage. I've left my pamphlets and notes in it. Catches sight of Renee, who is regarding her with helpless stare. Mr. St. Gall, may I ask what you are doing here at this hour? Such a silly mistake. Old Colonel Nicholas asked me to go over to Bowerwood after dinner as I was all alone. I distinctly told the groom Bowerwood, but he drove me here instead and I didn't see where I was till he had driven off. So I've had to wait here till he comes to fetch me. Hortensia, who has been staring fixedly at him and at the wine bottles and siphons on the table. Will you repeat your story, please? I didn't quite follow. Colonel Nicholas thinking I might be lonely. Hortensia. I hear music. I've been thinking I've heard harps in the air all evening. I put it down to the state of my nerves. Sybil, with hood overhead, runs through laughing from door left and exits door center without noticing Hortensia. Renee. Ah! Did you see that? Did you see that? Hortensia stares at doorway where figure vanished. Howl heard off. Enter Drummond with phantom hound mask on, door left. Run through and exit center. Renee. Oh, say something. Or we shall both go mad. Sobs convulsively. Hortensia, furiously. Ludovic! Enter Ludovic, hall right door. What is happening? Renee is collapsed in fit of pretend hysterics in armchair. Hortensia. The boy is either drunk or mad. Something disgraceful is taking place in this house. Ludovic. Something disgraceful here. Renee. What is all this? Renee, sitting rigid in chair and staring straight in front of him. Only werewolves chasing goblins to the sound of unearthly music. Will someone kindly see if my carriage has come? I refuse to stay another moment in this house. Enter Trevor, Claire, Mrs. Volpe from door left. Sybil and Drummond, door center, all unhooded. Trevor. Oh, good God.
Renee pours out glass of wine and drains it, then lies back composedly in his chair. A prolonged pause, during which Hortensia surveys sheepish group of revelers.
Sybil, weakly. We were having games. Mrs. Volpe. Old English games. Drummond. Charades. Claire. Historical charades. Enter Agatha and Sparrowby, door right back, singing with fortuitous exuberance Non je ne marche pas. They stop horror-stricken in center stage. Hortensia, seating herself in high-backed chair, her voice trembling with rage. May I ask who has organized this abominable and indecent orgy in my house? Will somebody enlighten me? Claire. It was something we got up on the spur of the moment. There was nothing organized, and what brought people in from outside? I've heard a contemptibly ridiculous story about Mr. St. Gall's accidental arrival here. How do you account for Mr. Drummond's presence? Was he also trying to make his way to Bowerwood? Drummond, blunderingly. Yes. Renee, decisively. No, that's my story, and it won't be plagiarized. Sybil. He dropped in by chance. Drummond. Yes, quite by chance. Hortensia. Also on the spur of the moment. A moment to be observed when I happened to be temporarily absent. And knowing my strong objection to the questionable form of entertainment involved in promiscuous dancing, you choose this moment for indulging in an aggravated and indecent kind of dance which I can only describe as a brawl. Mrs. Volpe. But, dear Mrs. Bavvel, I assure you there is nothing indecent in a sheet and pillowcase dance. Lulu Duchess of Dulverton gave Lulu Duchess of Dulverton is not a person whose behaviour or opinions will be taken as a pattern at Briony as long as I am mistress here. While you are still under my roof, Mrs. Volpe, I trust you will endeavour to remember that fact. Whether after this deplorable error of taste you will see fit to prolong your visit, of course I don't know. Apparently this monstrous misuse of the bed linen, which is intended for the sleeping accommodation of my guests, was carried out at your suggestion. Mrs. Volpe, bursting into tears. I think, considering the mental anxiety and strain through which I am passing, with a husband hovering between Johannesburg and heaven, I am being unfairly treated. Exit Mrs. Volpe, door left. Hortensia. I've refrained from complaining, Agatha, about the inconsiderate way in which you bring brambles and hedgeweeds and garden refuse into the house. But I must protest against your introducing individuals of the type of Mrs. Volpe as guests at Briony. Who is playing that piano? Sybil. Think it's Evelyn Bray. Hortensia. Ah! Who also dropped in accidentally, I suppose. Ludovic. Will you kindly tell Miss Bray that we don't require any more music this evening? Exit Ludovic, door right back. Had we not returned unexpectedly early, I presume this outrageous entertainment would have been kept from my knowledge. I may inform you that the mayor took upon himself to cancel the reception at the town hall, at which I was to have delivered a brief address, for the rather far-fetched reason of showing respect and sympathy at the sudden disappearance of Mrs. St. Gall. Renee.
I say that was rather pet lamb of him.
Hortensia. Mrs. St. Gall's son appears to treat the incident as of less serious importance. I came here for rest and sympathy, with a very faint possibility of a little bridge to distract my thoughts. I wasn't to be expected to know that historical charades would be going all around me. My nerves won't recover for weeks. Hortensia. I am a persistent advocate of the absolution of corporal punishment in the Navy and in board schools. But I must confess, Mr. St. Gall, that a good birching inflicted on you would cause me no displeasure. Enter Ludovic, door right back. Sybil. Really, Mrs. Bavvel, we must plead guilty to having planned this semi-impromptu affair just a little. But we thought it would be such a good occasion for making an announcement. Agatha. An announcement? Hortensia. What announcement? Sybil, looking at Trevor. An announcement that I'm provisionally, engaged. Sparrowby. Oh, Sybil, you angel. Let me announce it. Sybil and I are engaged. Ludovic. Engaged? You and Sybil? Impossible. I congratulate you, of course, but it's most unexpected. Claire. You dear thing, congratulations. Sybil, furiously. You must understand me. I'm not engaged, do you hear? Sparrowby. Oh, Sybil, but you just said you were. Sybil. You fool. I was talking about something quite different. Exit Sybil, door left. Hortensia. There seems to be some confusion about this wonderful announcement. Ludovic. I gather that Mrs. Beaumont was talking about something she's engaged on. Anyhow, she distinctly stated that she's not engaged to Mr. Sparrowby. Hortensia. In any case, this is hardly a fortunate moment in which to make announcements of secondary interest. Enter William, door center, carrying plate with banana. Stops horrified to see Mrs. Bavvel, who rises from chair. What are you carrying there, William? William. A banana, ma'am. What are you doing with a banana at this time of night? It's for her. Him. The cockatoo, ma'am. For Adolphus. At 11:15. He's never fed at this hour. He seemed disturbed and restless, as if he was asking for something, ma'am. Disturbed? I am not surprised. In the 14 years that he has lived here, he has never before experienced such an evening of disgraceful disorder. Trevor, perhaps you will see that your neighbours, who dropped in so unexpectedly, will leave with as little delay as possible. Those of you who are present, my guests, will kindly retire to their sleeping apartments. William? Yes, ma'am. Tell cook to send a cold supper for myself and Mr. Ludovic to the dining room. Some beef and pickled walnuts and a few peaches. Will, weakly. Yes, ma'am. Tomorrow I shall have a good deal to say on the subject of these deplorable proceedings. Tonight, I am too upset. I left Briony an orderly English home. I returned to find it a casino. Exit Hortensia up staircase left, followed by Ludovic, who holds up his hands in mock despair. The others stand blankly watching them disappear. Renee seizes banana which William is holding on plate and exit right, eating it. He is followed by Drummond and Agatha. William exit door left, leaving Claire and Trevor alone. Curtain.
Act 3. Breakfast room at Briony. Ludovic, having just breakfast, is still seated, chair pushed back from table, reading paper. Butler about to clear away breakfast things. Butler.
Shall I remove the breakfast things, sir?
Ludovic, glancing at clock.
Is no one else coming down? Where is Claire?
Butler.
Miss Claire complained of a headache, sir, and had breakfast in her room.
Ludovic.
And Mr. Trevor?
Mr. Trevor breakfasted very early and went up to the farm. Miss Sybil breakfast in her room.
Ludovic.
Had she a headache also?
She complained of a headache, sir. Mrs. Volpe breakfast in her room.
The same complaint?
No, sir, anxiety and nervous depression. She made a very big breakfast, sir. I don't know whether Miss Agatha has had her breakfast sent up. She wasn't awake half an hour ago.
Ludovic.
By the way, do you know whether Miss Volpe received any telegrams this morning?
She received one, sir, that she seemed to be expecting.
Ah.
She held it for a long while looking at it, sir, theatrical-like, and then said there was no answer.
Did she seem less depressed after she'd received it?
She ordered some kidney beans and toast. I should say she was a lot more cheerful.
Enter Agatha, hastily, door left. Agatha. Hello, Ludovic. Only you here. I meant to have breakfast upstairs, but I saw Hortensia go out to the rose garden, so I skipped down. Butler.
Shall I warm some of the breakfast dishes for you, miss?
Agatha. No, just make me some fresh tea and leave the ham and sardines. While speaking, has both arms on the table. I don't see any butter. Butler.
Your sleeve's in the butter, miss.
Oh, so it is. And you might bring in some more toast.
Yes, miss.
Agatha. Isn't there any honey?
Ludovic. Here are other sleeves in the honey.
Agatha. Oh, bother. Exit Butler, door center. I say, did you breakfast with Hortensia? Was she very awful?
She told me she had lain awake most of the night boiling with indignation. She's now in the hard-boiled state of cold vindictiveness.
Agatha. Oh, mercy on us, whatever shall we do?
Personally, I intend going for a few weeks on a visit to Ireland.
But we can't all go to Ireland.
One of the great advantages of Ireland as a place of residence is that a large number of excellent people never go there.
You're disgustingly selfish. You don't think what is to become of the rest of us.
On the contrary, it's you that are selfish and inconsiderate. If one of you only married Trevor, all this Hortensia discomfort and forced marching would be avoided.
How absurd you are, Ludovic. One can't marry Trevor without his consent. No really nice girl would make advances to a man unless he showed himself attracted to her first. And, as regards to Trevor, it wouldn't be the slightest good anyway. One might as well make advances on the landscape. Oh, we poor women are so dreadfully handicapped. If I were only a man,
If you were a man, you couldn't marry Trevor, so that wouldn't help us. Your sleeves in the honey again.
Enter Butler, door center, with tea and toast. Butler.
Is there anything else I can bring you, miss?
Agatha. No, thank you. Oh, tell cook in case I should be travelling later in the day to cut me some ham sandwiches. No mustard.
Yes, miss. Shall you want the dog cart ordered?
Ludovic.
You had better say the wagonette and the luggage cart. There may be others leaving this afternoon.
Butler.
The 3:20 up or the 4:15 down, miss?
Agatha. I'm not quite sure. I'll let you know later.
Yes, miss.
Exit Butler, door center. Agatha. If Hortensia is in a never darken my doors again kind of temper, I shall go right off to town and on somewhere from there. On the other hand, if it's a kind of outbreak that blows over in a week or two, I shall merely go and stay with some people I know at Exeter.
Nice people?
Oh dear no. Quite uninteresting. I met them somewhere in Switzerland. They helped to find some luggage that had gone astray. I always lose luggage when I travel. They have porridge in the mornings, but they live close to the station, so one hasn't got to take a cab.
Perhaps it won't be convenient for them to have you at a moment's notice.
It's not at all convenient for me to go there. But at a time like this, one can't stop to think of convenience. Especially other people's. Enter Sparrowby cautiously, door left. Sparrowby. I've been afraid to come in before for fear of meeting Hortensia. I'm awfully hungry. I suppose everything's cold.
Ludovic. As a matter of public convenience, I request you to be sparing with the ham. It may be required later in the day for an emergency ration of sandwiches. Have you booked a seat in the wagonette?
Sparrowby. I say, is it as bad as all that? I hope Mrs. Bavvel might have cooled down a bit.
She has. She has settled comfortably into a glacial epoch which will transform Briony into a subarctic zone in which I, for one, am not tempted to remain.
Sparrowby, seating himself at table and beginning to eat. What an awful nuisance. I don't want it all to leave Briony just now. I say, do you think I'm engaged to Sybil or not? She certainly seemed to say that we were engaged last night.
I really haven't given it a thought. I don't think it matters particularly. The important question is Trevor engaged to anybody?
Sparrowby. I think you're awfully unsympathetic.
It's absurd to expect sympathy at breakfast time. Breakfast is the most unsympathetic meal of the day. One can't love one's neighbour with any sincerity when he's emptying the toast rack and helping himself lavishly to the grilled mushrooms that one particularly adores. Even at lunch, one is usually in a rather quarrelsome frame of mind. You must have noticed that most family rows take place at lunchtime. At afternoon tea, one begins to get polite, but one isn't really sympathetic till about the second course of dinner.
Sparrowby. But the whole future happiness of my life is wrapped up in Sybil's acceptance of my offer.
People who wrap up their whole future happiness in one event generally find it convenient to unwrap it later on.
Enter Claire, door left. Claire. Morning, everybody. Have you brave things breakfast with Hortensia? Agatha. No. Only Ludovic. He reports us being pretty bad. It's a regular case of sauve qui peut. Claire. Such disgusting weather to travel in. Fancy being cooped up in a stuffy railway carriage all the afternoon. Anything in the papers, Ludovic?
Very possibly there may be. Agatha and Sparrowby have kept me so pleasantly engaged in discussing their plans that I've scarcely been able to grapple with the wider events of the day.
Agatha. Oh, I can always read and carry on a conversation at the same time. I suppose I've got a double brain. Claire. Why don't you economize and have one good one?
Ludovic, rising. If you two are going to quarrel, I'm off. Other people's quarrels always make me feel amiable, and a prospective parliamentary candidate can't afford to be amiable in private life. It's like talking shop out of hours.
Ludovic walks towards door left. Sparrowby, jumping up and following him. I say, Ludovic, I want to ask you, do you really think... Exit Ludovic with Sparrowby, door left. Enter Mrs. Volpe, door centre. Mrs. Volpe. Is the coast clear? I'm scared to death of meeting that gorgon again. Agatha. Had breakfast? Mrs. Volpe. Nothing worth speaking of. Oh. Is there tea? How adorable. Seats herself at table. Well. Has anything happened? Agatha. The luggage cart has been requisitioned. And if you want anything in the way of sandwiches or luggage labels, an earlier order will prevent disappointment. Mrs. Volpe. Oh, gracious, what an earthquake. And all because of a little harmless dance. If any of you girls do succeed in marrying that young man, you'll have to break him of the farmyard habit. A husband who is always going to earth is rather a poor sort of investment. Claire. As long as one marries him, what does it matter? One can afford to be neglected by one's own husband. It's when other people's husbands neglect one that one begins to talk of matrimonial disillusion. Mrs. Volpe. Other people's husbands are a rather overrated lot. I prefer unmarried men any day. They have so much more experience. Claire. I don't agree with you. Isn't there a proverb, a relapsed husband makes the best rake? Agatha. You're positively disgraceful, both of you. We used to be taught to be content with the 10 commandments and one husband. Nowadays, women want to get along with fewer commandments and want 10 husbands. Mrs. Volpe. It's no use scolding. It's the fault of our age we live in. The perfection of the motor car has turned the country into a vast prairie of grass widowhood. How can a woman be expected to cleave to one who is at Lancaster Gate one minute and at North Berwick the next? Agatha. She can stay at home and lavish her affections on her babies. Claire. I hate babies. They're so human, they remind one of monkeys. Enter Sybil, door left. Throws herself on a chair left, center of stage. Mrs. Volpe.
Well, it's no use taking a tragic view of yesterday's fiasco. There are thousands of as good men as Trevor in the world waiting to be married.
Sybil. That's just it. They don't seem to mind how long they wait. And when you come to have a closer look at the thousands, there are very few of them that one could possibly marry. Agatha. Oh, nonsense. I don't see why one should be so dreadfully fastidious. After all, we're told all men are brothers. Sybil. Yes. Unfortunately, so many of them are younger brothers. Agatha. Oh, well, money isn't everything. Sybil. It isn't everything. But it's a very effective substitute for most things. Mrs. Volpe. By the way, tell me which is the nearest and cleanest way to the farm. Agatha, who's about to leave room. Through the white gates into a fir plantation and past the potting sheds. You can't miss it. Suddenly turning back and sitting down abruptly. What do you want to go there for? Merely to say my goodbyes to Mr. Trevor. And while he is showing me round the farm buildings, I dare say I shall find an opportunity to tell him how badly he's treated you all. And what an uncomfortable situation he's created, and generally work on his better feelings. Sybil. You might as well work on superior blotting paper. Exit Mr. Volpe. I don't trust that woman a little atom. Claire. I believe she's had bad news from South Africa, and she's keeping it dark and going for Trevor on her own account. Sybil. He spoke very curiously about her to me last night. Asked what I thought about her and all that. Agatha. Exactly what he did to me. I say, can't we stop her? Claire. Are you proposing to use violence? If so, I think I'll watch from a distance. When you used to play hockey, you were noted for hitting more people than you ever aimed at. Sybil, jumping to her feet. Hortensia's voice. Claire and Sybil scurry out of the room by door right. Agatha blunders into the arms of Hortensia, who enters by door left. Agatha, trying to look at her ease. Oh, good morning. Did it rain in the night? Hortensia. I lay awake most of the night. I did not hear any rain. Rings bell. Agatha. Oh, I'm so sorry you didn't sleep well. Oak leaves soaked in salt water and put under the bed are an awfully good remedy. Let me get you some. Thank you. But we don't want any more decaying vegetation brought into this house. My sleeplessness was not due to insomnia. Under normal circumstances, I sleep excellently. Agatha. I feel I ought to explain about last night. You will have to explain. Everyone will have to give an account of his or her share in the disgraceful affair, including the servants, who seem to have connived at it. I have ordered a gathering of the household at 4 o'clock in the library, which you will kindly attend. Enter William, door center. William, at this hour of the morning I expect the breakfast things to be cleared away. Exit Hortensia. Agatha. William, tell John I shall have to leave here well before 4 to catch the 4:15. I've got lots of luggage to register at the station. Will.
Yes, miss? The wagonette's ordered already.
Agatha. I expect it will have to be the dog cart as well. There will probably be a lot of us wanting to catch trains this afternoon.
Yes, miss. What I envy about you, miss, is your play-going way of taking things.
Agatha. Play-going way?
Yes, miss. You just sit and wait till things have been brought to a climax, and then you put on your hat and gloves and walk outside. It's different for those who've got to go on living with the climax.
I hadn't thought of that. I suppose it is rather horrid. Exit William by door center, carrying off breakfast things on tray. Exit Agatha, door left. Enter Ludovic, door right. He takes newspaper packet off table left, opens wrapper, throws himself into a chair and begins reading. Enter Renee, door right. Renee. Ludovic! Aren't you all feeling like a lot of drowned kittens? Ludovic.
I don't know what a lot of drowned kittens feels like. I hope I'm not looking like a lot of drowned kittens.
Renee. Oh, don't talk about looks. Looks himself carefully over in the mirror. I felt so jumpy last night that I should scarcely dare put the light out. I had a hot water bottle in my bed.
A hot water bottle? Surely it's too warm for that.
Oh, there was no hot water in it. It was merely to give a sense of protection. I suppose there's a general stampede? Seats himself, chair, center stage. Ludovic.
The house resounds with the cutting of sandwiches and the writing of luggage labels.
Renee. And what does he say to it all?
Who? Trevor? He made a strategic move to the farm at an early hour.
I believe he was so sleepy last night that he doesn't really know whether he proposed to Sybil or not.
Sybil did her best, but that miserable Sparrowby ruined whatever chance she had.
I've no use for that person. He's just the kind of idiot who comes up to you in a Turkish bath and says, "Isn't it hot?" Meanwhile, what are you going to do?
I shall pay a long projected visit to an old chum who lives in Kildare.
Nonsense, Ludo, you can't. Nobody really lives in Kildare. I don't believe there are such places. And old Spindleham is really at the last gasp. The Western Morning News says he can't live out the week.
Ludovic. Under present circumstances, Renee, I have no intention of standing.
Oh, don't be so provoking. Go and see Trevor and tell him he must marry Sybil. Explain the circumstances to him. A wife is the sort of thing that can happen any day, but a parliamentary vacancy is a different matter. There's your career to think of.
He will naturally retort that his whole future happiness is to be thought of.
Dad, what about my whole future income?
My dear Renee, the question is whether or not we have hunted Trevor into the wrong net.
I've just met that Volpe woman cry up to the farm, and something in her manner tells me that she's running a trail of her own. But her husband, what...
I asked her if she had any news of him. She was careful to tell me that she hadn't received any letters this morning. She was equally careful not to inform me that she did get a telegram. I fancy that telegram announced her promotion to the rank of widowhood.
But you surely don't think that Trevor
That's
would...
exactly what I do think.
We've tried to badger and harry him into a matrimonial entanglement with all sorts of eligible and likely young women. And it's quite in the nature of things he'll turn round and perversely commit himself to this wholly impossible person. You must remember that Trevor is a fellow who has seen comparatively little of the world, and what he's seen has been more or less of one pattern. Now that he's suddenly confronted with a creature of quite another type, with whom he isn't expected to interest himself, naturally at once he becomes interested. Renee. Well, if this stumbling block of a husband of hers has really been good-natured enough to migrate to another world, everything is plain sailing. Trevor can go ahead and marry the lady after a decent interval, of course.
Absolutely out of the question. I should never forgive myself if such a thing happened.
But why? Haven't we been moving heaven and earth to get him married?
Married, yes, but not to Mrs. Volpe. After all, Trevor is my only brother's only son, and if I can help it, I'm not going to sit and let him tie himself to that bundle of scheming vulgarity. Besides, a woman like that installed as mistress of Briony would only mean a prolongation of Hortensia's influence. Trevor would be driven to consult his mother in everything, from the sheer impossibility of putting confidence in his wife. I think we're being absurdly fastidious about Trevor's wife. We've given him heaps of opportunity for marrying decent non-entities, so I don't see why we should reproach ourselves if he accidentally swallows a clumsier bait. Anyhow, I don't see how you're going to stop it if there's really anything in it. That's just what's worrying me. To speak to him about it would be to clinch matters. With rare exceptions, the Bavels are devilishly obstinate.
Renee. Well, it would be a rather delicate subject to broach to her. She would scarcely relish being told that she is impossible.
I should put it more tactfully.
I should tell her that she wouldn't harmonize with local surroundings, that she is too much dash and go, and help me out with some tactical attribute. Too flamboyant?
I asked you for tact, not fact.
Too much individuality. I don't know what that means, but it sounds well.
Thank you. That will do nicely. A woman always respects a word that she can't spell.
You better jot it all down on your cuff. You'll forget it in a sudden panic when you're talking to her. Enter Butler right. Butler.
Colonel Mutsum!
Enter Colonel Mutsum right. Exit Butler, same door. Colonel.
How do you do?
Shakes hand with Ludovic, bows to Renee.
What unpleasant weather. Quite damp.
I hope dear Hortensia is well. I've a great admiration for Hortensia. I always say she's the first lady in Somersetshire. Renee. Everything must have a beginning. Colonel. I hear our member is not expected to live. Seats himself in chair right. Ludovic.
I saw something to that effect in the local papers.
Colonel. I suppose we shall be having an election in a few weeks' time. Is it true that you are the prospective party candidate? I saw it suggested in the local papers. There has always been some idea of getting a Bavvel to stand. Colonel. I suppose you would accept. Ludovic.
That will depend very largely on family considerations.
Renee. Of course Ludovic means to stand. I caught him yesterday being ostentatiously sympathetic to the local chemist, a man with a hare lip and personal reminiscences and a vote. No one listens to the personal reminiscences of a man with a hare lip unless they've got some imperative motive. When the man also has a vote, the motive is unmistakable. Ludovic.
Renee?
As a private secretary, you would have to be very private. Colonel. I suppose you subscribe to all the principal items of the party program?
Ludovic. Oh, I believe so. And to most of the local charities. That is the really important thing. It is generally understood that a rich man has some difficulty in entering the kingdom of heaven. The House of Commons is not so exclusive. Our electoral system, however, takes good care that the rich man entering Parliament shall not remain rich. It is simply astonishing the number of institutions supported by involuntary contributions that a candidate discovers in his prospective constituency. At least, he doesn't discover them, they discover him. For instance, I don't keep bees. I don't know how to, and don't want to know how to. I don't eat honey. I never go near a hive except at an agricultural show when I am perfectly certain there are no bees in it.
Yet I have already consented to be vice president and annual subscriber to the local Bees Keepers Association.
On consulting a memorandum book, I find I am vice president of 7 bell ringers guilds and about 20 village football clubs. I cannot remember having been so enthusiastic about football when I was in school. I am a subscribing member of a botanical ramble club. Can you imagine me doing botanical rambles? Of course you quite understand that there's no bribery in all this. Colonel. Of course not. Bribery is not tolerated nowadays. Ludovic. At any rate, one gives it another name. Let us call it altruism in compartments. Very intense and comprehensive where it exists, but strictly confined within the bounds of one's constituency. Colonel. I suppose you're sound on religious questions? There's no truth in the story that you have leanings towards agnosticism. My dear Colonel, no one can be agnostic nowadays. The Christian apologists have left one nothing to disbelieve. Renee. Personally, I'm a pagan. Christians waste too much time in professing to be miserable sinners, which generally results in their being merely miserable and leaving some of the best sins undone. Whereas the pagan gets cheerfully to work and commits his sins and doesn't brag so much about them. Colonel. I trust you are only talking in theory. In theory, of course. In practice, everyone is pagan according to his lights. Renee, as a private secretary, I'm afraid you would become a public scandal. I shouldn't dare to leave you alone with an unprotected deputation. Enter Trevor, door left. Trevor.
Morning, Ludovic. Hello, Colonel. I didn't know you were here. Shakes hands with Colonel Mutsum. Morning, Renee. I distinctly heard you all talking politics. Trevor seats himself in a chair, center stage. Colonel. Politics are rather in the air. It seems we are threatened with a parliamentary vacancy. Ludovic. By way of meeting trouble halfway, Colonel Mutsum has come to ascertain whether there is any probability of my standing. Colonel. I should have expressed it differently. Things do not point at present to the probability of my becoming a candidate. But the Colonel has taken things betimes and has been doing a little preliminary heckling. Colonel. Not heckling exactly. My position as vice chairman of the local party association gives me some opportunity for gauging opinion down here. Collectively, the government has, perhaps, lost some of its prestige, but individually, I think ministers are popular. Ludovic. Including the irrepressible Bumpingford? Colonel. Oh, certainly. Rather an assertive personality, perhaps, but of undeniable ability. He comes into the category of those who are born to command. Ludovic. Possibly. His trouble so far is that he hasn't been able to find anyone who is born to obey him. So you think ministers are in general popular? Compared with the leaders of the opposition, Ludovic, one should be careful not to say any disparaging things of opposition leaders. Because they may one day be at the head of affairs? No. Because they may one day lead the opposition. One never knows. Colonel. There is the question of votes for women. Personally, I see no reason why women shouldn't have votes. They're quite unfit to have votes, but that's no argument against their having them. If we were to restrict the right of voting to those of the male sex who are fitted for it, we should have to enlarge Hyde Park to accommodate the protesting hordes of non-voters. Government by democracy means government of the mentally unfit, by the mentally mediocre-tempered, by the saving grace of snobbery. Colonel. You will be very unpopular if you say that sort of thing down here. I have no intention of saying it. Some poet has remarked, to think is to be full of sorrow. To think aloud is a luxury of sorrow which few politicians can afford to indulge in. Colonel, suddenly. By the way, was there some dancing at Briony last night? Ludovic, in nervous haste. Oh no, just some Shakespeare readings and a little music. I wonder you haven't asked me about land values. Colonel, I was coming to that. Trevor, eagerly. It's rather an important question, particularly down here. Ludovic. Most important. Renee, same eagerness. It's quite one of the questions of the immediate future. An aunt of a cabinet minister was speaking to me only about it last week. She said it kept her awake at nights. Colonel. Really?
I quite understood that there was a Cinderella dance.
Oh, no, dear no, nothing of that kind. Some Shakespeare reading, in costume.
Colonel. In costume? But how very interesting. What scenes did you give? Renee. The ghost scenes from what do you call it? Colonel. The ghost scene from Hamlet.
That must have needed a lot of rehearsal.
Renee. No, we had a lot of ghosts, so that if one forgot his lines, another could go on with them. Colonel. What a very odd idea. But they couldn't have all been in costume. Renee. They were. Rows of them. All in white sheets. How very extraordinary. It couldn't have been a bit like Shakespeare. Renee. It wasn't, but it was very like Maeterlinck. Whoever really wrote Hamlet, there can be no doubt that Maeterlinck and Maxim Gorky ought to have written it in collaboration. Colonel. But how could they? They weren't born at the same time. Renee. That's the bother of it. Ideas get used up so quickly. If the Almighty hadn't created the world at the beginning of things, Edison would have probably done it by this time on quite different lines. And then someone would have come along to prove that the Chinese had done it centuries ago. Colonel, acidly, to Trevor, turning his back on Renee. How was your cold, Mr. Trevor? You had a cold before we went to Worcestershire. Trevor. That one went long ago. I've got another one now, which is better, thank you. Colonel. We had such a lot of asparagus in Worcestershire. Trevor. Yes? We got our earliest asparagus in London, then we got more down here, and then we had a late edition in Worcestershire, so we've had quite a lot this year. Renee. The charm of that story is that it could be told in any drawing room. Colonel, rising from seat. I think I saw Hortensia pass the window. If you don't mind, I'll go and meet her. Ludovic.
Let me escort you.
Exeunt Ludovic and Colonel Mutsum, door right. Renee, lighting cigarette. You've heard the story that's going about. Trevor. That we held unholy revels here last night? Well, apropos of that, people are saying that you and Sparrowby proposed to the same girl, and that Sparrowby threatened to break your neck if you didn't give way to him, and that you gave way rather than have any unpleasantness. Trevor. What an infernal invention. I am damned if I let that go about. Renee. I don't see what you can do to stop it. Trevor. I might break Sparrowby's neck. No one could have any reasonable objection to that, of course. Sparrowby is one of those people who would be enormously improved by death. Unfortunately, he is your guest, and on that account it wouldn't be quite the thing to do. He's sure to have a parent or an aunt or someone who'd write letters to the Times about it. Fatal ragging in country houses and so on. No, your only prudent line of action would be to marry the girl, or any girl who would come handy, just to knock the stuffing out of the story. Otherwise you'll have to take it recumbent, as the saying is. Trevor. I'm not fool enough to rush off and perpetuate matrimony with the first person I meet in order to put a stop to a ridiculous story. My dear Trevor, I quite understand your situation. You don't. Of course I do. You don't want to interrupt an agreeable and moderately safe flirtation with a woman who has just got husband enough to give her the flavour of forbidden fruit. I'm not one of those who run the Volpe down just because she's a trifle too flamboyant for the general taste. As a wife, I dare say she'd be rather an experiment down here, but I've no doubt that you'd be tolerably happy. She'd be more at her ease at a suburban race meeting than at any country garden party, but still, you could travel a good deal. And if you find her sympathetic, it doesn't matter very much whether she's intelligent or not. But all of that is besides the point, because she's not available. Inconvenient husbands don't come to timely ends in real life like they do in fiction. If you seriously want to put your foot down on the gossip that is going about and make an end of this uncomfortable domestic situation, your only course is to go straight ahead and propose to the very first available girl that you run up against. If it's a bother of the thing that you shirk, let me open negotiations for you. My mission in life is to save other people trouble, on reasonable terms. Renee becomes suddenly aware that Trevor has gone to sleep, and rises angrily from his seat. Of all the exasperating dolts! I don't know how matchmaking mothers manage to grow fat on the business. A week of this would wear me to a shadow! Exit Renee in a fury, door right. Enter Ludovic left. Ludovic.
Hello? Is Renee here?
Trevor.
He was. A minute or two ago.
I think I heard him leave the house. Ludovic.
Has anything been heard of his mother? So many distracting things have been happening, I clean forgot to ask about her.
Trevor. By Jove, so did I. He'll think us rather amiss, but anyhow he seemed more concerned about finding me a suitable wife than about retrieving his lost parent. Have you heard anything of the story that he says is going about? Ludovic, seating himself.
About last night, you mean?
Yes, that Spurby and I proposed to the same girl, and Spurby bounced me into taking a back seat. Ah, no. At least, probably what I heard had reference to that. What an unpleasant scandal. Unfortunately, the fact that Sybil is leaving Briony in such a hurry will give colour to it. Trevor. Was it Sybil, then? I suppose so. I think I heard her name mentioned. What shall you do, then? Do? I don't know. What do you suggest? My suggestion would be so simple that you're not likely to accept it for a moment. If one shows people an intricate and risky way out of a difficulty, they are becomingly grateful. If you point out a safe and obvious exit, they regard you with resentment. In your case, the resentment would probably take the form of going to sleep in the middle of my advice. Trevor. I wasn't going to sleep. I was wondering which particular girl you were going to recommend to my notice. There seems to be a connection to Sybil Beaumont. Ludovic. It's scarcely my place to fill in the details for you. I suppose matrimony is an eventuality which begins to present itself rather prominently to you. And when you've settled that point, the details soon fit themselves in. If the Beaumont girl doesn't meet your requirements, there is your neighbour Evelyn Bray, whom you entangled in last night's entertainment. I shall never forget her face when I told her that Hortensia didn't require any more music. And there's Claire Hennessy. You used to get on famously with Claire. Trevor. Claire and Evelyn are very good sorts. Ludovic, raising his hand. Good sorts. Oh, my dear Trevor, you are still in the schoolboy stage as regards women. The schoolboy divides womankind broadly into two species, the decent sort and the holy whore, much as the naturalist, after a somewhat closer investigation of a subject, classifies snakes as either harmless or poisonous. The schoolboy is usually fairly well informed about things that he doesn't have to study, but as regards women, he is altogether too specific. You can't really divide them in a hard and fast way. Trevor. At least there are superficial differences, but nothing deeper. Woman is a belated survival from a primeval age of struggle and cunning and competition. That is why whenever you go the world over, you find all the superfluous dust and worrying be made by the gentler sex. If you are on a crowded P&O steamer, who is it that wages incessant warfare over the cabin accommodation? Who is it that creates the little social feuds that divide benighted country parishes and lonely hill stations? Who is it that raises objections to smoking in railway carriages, and who writes to home masters to complain of the dear boys' breakfast fare? Man has moved with the historic progression of the ages. But woman is a habit that has survived from the period when one had a dispute with cave bears and cave hyenas whether one ate one's supper or watched others eat it, whether one slept at home or on one's doorstep. The great religions of the world have all recognized this fact and kept womankind severely outside their respective systems. That is why, however secular one's tendencies, one turns instinctively to religion in some form for respite and peace. Trevor. But one can't get along without women. Ludovic. Precisely what I've been trying to impress upon you. Granted that woman is merely a bad habit, she is a habit that we have not grown out of. Under certain circumstances, a bad habit is a first cousin to a virtue. In your case, it seems to me that matrimony is not only a virtue, but a convenience. Trevor. It's all very well for you to talk about convenience. What may be convenient for other people might be highly inconvenient for me. That means you're involved in some blind alley affair with a married woman. Precisely what I feared. Men like yourself have easygoing, unsuspecting temperaments and verily fall victims to the most rapacious type of cavewoman. The woman who already has a husband and who merely kills for the sake of killing. You pick and choose and dally among your artificial categories of awfully good sorts and dear little woman, and then someone of the Mrs. Volpe type comes along and quietly annexes you. Trevor. I seem to have been annexed to Mrs. Volpe by popular delimitation. Critically speaking, she isn't a bit my style, but I don't see anything so very dreadful about her. She's a trifle pronounced, perhaps. She tells me she had a Spanish grandfather. Ancestors will happen in the best-intentioned families. Every social sin or failing is excused nowadays under the plea of an artistic temperament or a Sicilian grandmother. As poor Lady Clotsam once told me, as soon as her children found out that a Hungarian lady of blameless moral character had married into the family somewhere in the reign of the Georges, she considered themselves absolved from any further attempt to distinguish between good and evil, except by way of expressing a general preference for the latter. When her youngest boy was at Winchester, he made such an unblushing use of the Hungarian strain in his blood that he was known as the Blue Danube. That, said Lady Clotsam, is what comes of letting young children read Debrett and Darwin. Trevor. As regards Mrs. Volpe's temperament, I don't fancy one needs to go very far afield. Oh, no. Greater London is quite capable of turning her out without having recourse to foreign blending. Trevor. Still, I don't see that she's anything worse than a flirt. Oh, on her best behaviour, I've no doubt she's perfectly gentle and frolicsome. For the matter of that, the cave hyenas probably had their after-dinner moments of comparative amiability. But from the point of view of an extremely marriageable young bachelor, she simply isn't safe to play with.
I don't want to run her down on the score of her rather common personality, but I wish to warn you that she is one of those people gifted with just a sort of pushing, scheming audacity. Enter Mrs. Volpe, door center. Oh, good morning, Mrs. Volpe. Trevor looks round and jumps to his feet. Just a sort of pushing, scheming audacity that makes them dangerous. Once we let them wiggle their way into the Persian Gulf, they'll snap up all our commerce under our eyes. Mrs. Volpe. You dreadful men. Always talking politics. Politics are rather in the air just now. Mrs. Volpe. I feel as if we're all in the air after the dreadful explosion of last night. I'm just wondering where I'm going to come down. Trevor. It seems an awful shame. Driving all you charming people away. My mother goes to absurd lengths about some things. Mrs. Volpe. It's poor us who have to go to the absurd lengths. I shan't feel safe till I put 2 fair-sized counties between Mrs. Bavvel and myself. Oh, Mr. Trevor, before I leave, you must show me the model dairy. Trevor. Righto. I'll take you there now if you like. Mrs. Volpe. Do, please. I just love dairies and cheese-making and all that sort of thing. I think it's so clever the way they make those little blue insertions in the gorgonzola cheese. I always say I ought to have been a farmer's wife. We'll leave Ludovic to his horrid politics. Ludovic. Before I forget, Trevor, go and get me those trout flies you promised me, and I'll have them packed. Mrs. Volpe won't mind, I dare say, waiting for you here for a few minutes. Right you are. I won't be a second. Exit Trevor. I hope you don't despise me too much. Despise you? Oh, Mr. Ludovic, whatever could I despise you for? For being fool enough to put confidence in you as a fellow conspirator. I'm sure I've been loyal enough to our compact. If the results haven't been brilliant, you can scarcely blame me for the breakdown. Compact was that you should help in an endeavour to get Trevor engaged to one of the girls of the house party. I don't think I'm mistaken in saying that the game you are playing is to secure him for yourself. Never more mistaken in your life! Really, you seem to forget that I'm a married woman. Your memory is even shorter. You seem to forget that you received a telegram this morning to say that your husband is dead. Oh, whatever will you say next? You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, it's correct enough, I read it. How dare you intercept my correspondence? The telegram was marked plain enough, Volpe Bavvel. You're simply a common sneak. I didn't read the intelligence in your telegram. I read it in your manner. You've just been obliging enough to confirm my deductions. Oh, you're trying amateur detective business on me, are you? With sudden change of manner. Now look here, Mr. Ludovic, don't set yourself against me. Why shouldn't I marry Trevor? You said yourself 2 days ago that it was a pity I wasn't a widow, so that I could be eligible for marrying him. Of course, I spoke jestingly. Well, it isn't a jest to me. I've had a wretched, miserable time with my late husband. I can't tell you what a time I've had with him. Because you have had a miserable time with the late Mr. Volpe is precisely, my dear lady, the reason why I don't wish you to try the experiment of being miserable with my nephew. You are so utterly unsuited to him in his surroundings that you couldn't fail to be unhappy and make him unhappy into the bargain. I don't see why I should be unsuited to him. Trevor's a gentleman, and I am a lady, I suppose. Perhaps you wish to suggest that I am not. You are, if you will permit me to say so, a very charming and agreeable lady. But you would not fit in with the accepted ideals of the neighbourhood. You have too much dash and go and indefinable characteristics. I don't know if you've noticed it, but in Somersetshire, we don't dash. Oh, don't fling your beastly county set with its prejudices in my face. I'm as good as the lot of you and a bit better. I mix in far smarter circles than you've got here. Lulu Duchess of Dulverton and her set are a cut above the pack of you, and as for you, if you want my opinion, you're a meddling, interfering, middle-aged toad. You asked me a moment ago why you shouldn't marry Trevor. You're supplying one of the reasons now. You're flying into something very like a rage. In Somersetshire, we never fly into a rage. We walk into one. And when necessary, we stay there for weeks, perhaps for years. But we never fly into one. Oh, I've had enough of your sarcasms. You've had my opinion of you. You're a mass of self-seeking and intrigue. You're mistaken if you think I'm going to let a middle-aged toad stand in my path. Enter Trevor. Trevor. Here are all the flies I could find. Sorry to have kept you waiting, but I had to hunt for them. Ludovic. Don't mention it. We've been having such an interesting talk about the age toads live to. Mrs. Volpe is quite a naturalist. Mrs. Volpe. I've got all my packing to do, so we'd better not lose any more time. Trevor. Right you are. We will go off at once.
Exit Trevor and Mrs. Volpe right. Enter Agatha left. Ludovic flings himself down savagely at writing table.
Agatha. Have you seen Trevor anywhere?
Ludovic. He was here a minute ago. I believe he's now in the dairy.
The dairy? What's he doing in the dairy?
I don't know. What does one do in dairies?
What makes butter and that sort of thing? Trevor can't make butter.
I don't believe he can. We spend incredible sums on technical education, but the number of people who know how to make butter remains extremely limited.
Is he alone?
I fancy Mrs. Volpe is with him.
That cat! Why is she with him?
I don't know. There's a proverb, isn't there, about showing a cat the way to the dairy, but I forget what happens next.
I call it rather compromising.
It's a model dairy, you know.
I don't see that makes it any better. Mrs. Volpe is scarcely a model woman.
She's a married woman.
A South African husband is rather a doubtful security.
And you can scarcely blame her for taking a provident interest in West of England bachelors.
It's simply indecent. She might wait till one husband is definitely dead before trying to rope in another.
My dear Agatha, brevity is the soul of widowhood.
Agatha. I loathe her. She promised she would try and get Trevor to put an end to all this muddle and row by getting him engaged to Sybil or anyone else available.
How do you know she's not trying now?
Oh, I say, do you think she is?
I think it's quite possible. Also, I think it's quite possible that Trevor is discussing learnedly on the amount of milk a Jersey cow can be induced to yield under intelligent treatment. Frankly, I consider these milk and egg statistics that one is expected to talk about in the country border on the indelicate. If I were a cow or hen, I should resent having my most private and personal actions treated as a sort of auction bridge. The country has no reticence.
Enter Sybil Wright. Sybil. Well, I've packed. Oh dear, I haven't begun. I know I shall be late for the train. I'm always late for trains. I must go and dig up some foxglove roots in the plantation to take away with me. Sybil. I refuse to let you bring more than 5 cubic feet of earth, mould, or stinging nettles into the carriage. Agatha. Don't excite yourself, my dear. I'm going by down train and you're going by an up, I presume. Sybil. Don't be a pig. You must come with us to make 4 for bridge. There'll be Claire and myself and you and the Volpe. Otherwise we'll have to let that wearisome Sparrowby in, and I'd rather have a ton of decaying hedge and compressed caterpillar in the carriage than have Sparrowby inflicted on me for 3 mortal hours. Agatha. I'm not going to upset all my visiting plans just to suit your bridge arrangements. Besides, you said the last time we played I had no more notion of the game than an unborn parrot. I haven't got such a short memory, you see. Sybil. I wish you hadn't got such a short temper. Agatha. Me? Short-tempered? My good temper is proverbial. Sybil. Not to say legendary. Ludovic.
Please don't start quarrelling. You're making me feel amiable again.
Enter Mrs. Volpe, right, trying not to look crestfallen. Mrs. Volpe. I never knew a dairy could be so interesting. All the latest improvements. Such beautiful ventilation and such plain dairymaids. Why, what it is to have a careful mother.
You weren't very long in going over it?
Oh, I had to rush it, of course. I must go and superintend my packing. It doesn't do to leave everything to one's maid. Sybil. Hortensia. It's no use bolting, we're cornered. Enter Wright, Hortensia, and Colonel Mutsum. Mrs. Volpe. Good morning, Mrs. Bavvel. She bows to the Colonel. Pause. Colonel.
Mrs. Bavvel has just been showing me the poultry yard. I've been admiring the black minorcas. How many eggs did you say they've laid in the last 6 months, Hortensia? Hortensia. I don't think Mrs. Volpe is very much interested in such matters. Mrs. Volpe. Oh, I adore poultry. There's something so Omar Khayyam about them. Lulu, Duchess of Dulverton, keeps white peacocks.
Colonel. Such a disappointment to us not to have had Mrs. Bavvel's lecture last night. All on account of Mrs. St. Gal's extraordinary disappearance. People are talking of a suicide. Others say it's a question of eluding creditors. Her debts, I believe, are simply enormous. Hortensia. One must be careful of echoing local gossip. But from the improvident way in which that household is managed, one is justified in supposing that financial difficulties are not uncommon there. Colonel.
In any case, I feel convinced that we shan't see Mrs. Gall in these parts again. Enter Renee, door right, followed by Trevor. Renee. I found my mother! Colonel. Mrs. St. Gall found? You've seen her? Renee. No, but I've spoken to her. She was having a bath when I got back, so we conversed through the bathroom door. Touching scene of filial piety. Return of the prodigal mother, son weeping over bathroom door handle. We don't have a fatted calf, but I promised her an egg with her tea. Colonel. But where has she been all this time? Renee. Principally at Cardiff. Colonel. Cardiff? Whatever did she go to Cardiff for? Renee. She didn't want to go. She was taken. Hortensia. Taken? She was doing a stroll on the Crowcombe Road when Frida Tewkesbury and her husband swooped down on her in the road car. They live in Warwick. At least they've got a house and some children there, but since they've gone mad with motoring, they spend most of their time on the highway. The poor we have always in our midst, and nowadays the rich may crash into us at any moment. Colonel. Your mother wasn't run over. Renee. Oh, no. But Frida took her for a spin and then insisted on her coming just as she was for a day or two's visit to Monmouth and Cardiff. Frida is always picking up her friends in that impromptu way. She keeps spare toothbrushes and emergency night things of various sizes on her car. Of course, you can't dress for dinner, but that doesn't matter very fundamentally in Cardiff. Ludovic. But surely your mother might have telegraphed to say what had become of her. Renee. She did. From Monmouth. With long directions about charcoal biscuits for the chow's suppers. And again from Cardiff to say when she was coming back. Frida gave the wires to her husband to send off, which accounts for their never having reached us. None of the Tewkesburys have any memories. Their father got a knock on the head at Inkerman, and since then the family has never been able to remember anything. I love borrowing odd sums from Tewkesbury. Both of us are so absolutely certain to forget all about it. Hortensia. And it was on account of this madcap freak that last night's function was postponed? And my address cancelled? Colonel. This promiscuous gadding about in motors is undermining all home life and sense of locality. One scarcely knows nowadays to which country people belong. Hortensia. I trust that Mrs. St. Gall showed some appreciation of the anxiety and alarm caused by her disappearance. Renee. I don't know. I wasn't in a position to see. Hortensia. Altogether a most extraordinary episode.
A fitting sequel to last night's Saturnalia.
Colonel.
A Saturnalia. Here, at Briony.
Advantage was taken of my absence at Panfold last night to indulge in an entertainment which I describe as a Saturnalia for fear of giving it a worse name.
Ludovic. Perhaps we are judging it a little too seriously. A little dancing
in a particularly objectable character. In costumes improvised from bed linen. Colonel.
Bed linen.
To an accompaniment of French songs.
Colonel. French songs. Oh, that's horrible. I was told that it was merely Shakespeare readings.
Hortensia. I regret to say that some of the servants appear to have lent themselves to the furtherance of this underhand proceeding. Among others, it will be my unpleasant duty to ask the cook to find another place. I shall give her a good character as a cook, but I shall be very restrained as to what I say about her trustworthiness. Trevor. But mother, isn't that being rather extreme? She's an awfully good cook. I put conduct over cookery. After all, she did nothing more than make 2 or 3 supper dishes for us. She couldn't be expected to know that there would be French songs to follow. Hortensia. It was her duty to consult me as to these highly unusual preparations. I had given my customary orders for the kitchen department, and they did not include chicken mayonnaise or peshmelba. Had she informed me of these unauthorized instructions that she had received, the mischief would have been detected and nipped in the bud. Trevor. I think it's scarcely fair that she should be punished for what we did. Trevor rises and goes to window right center.
Ludovic.
I confess, I think it's rather unfortunate that such an eminently satisfactory cook should be singled out for dismissal.
Hortensia. Scarcely singled out, Ludovic. 2 or 3 of the other servants will also have to go. Colonel.
One must see that one's orders are respected, mustn't one?
Enter William left with card. Will, to Ludovic.
The reporter of the Wessex Courier would like to speak with you, sir.
Ludovic.
Tell him I'm unable to see any pressmen at the moment.
Will, handing card to Ludovic.
He's written a question which he would feel obligated if you'd answer, sir.
Hortensia. What is the question?
He wants to know if I intend standing in the event of a parliamentary vacancy.
To William.
You can tell him that I have not the remotest intention of standing.
Renee groans tragically. Will.
Yes, sir.
Exit William left. Hortensia. Really, Ludovic, I think you are rather precipitate in your decisions. Differing though we do on more than one of the secondary questions of the day, I am nevertheless inclined to think that the Briony influence would be considerably augmented by having one of the family as member for the division. Subject to a certain modification of your political views, I am distinctly anxious to see you representing this district in Parliament. I consider this impending vacancy to be a golden opportunity for you.
Ludovic. There are some people whose golden opportunities have a way of getting prematurely grey. I am one of those. Colonel. I must say we rather counted on having you for a candidate. I think I may voice a very general disappointment. Renee. There are some disappointments that are too deep to be voiced. Enter William, door center. Will. If you please, ma'am. Hortensia. What is it? Adolphus has laid an egg. Renee. Oh, improper little bird. Hortensia. An egg?
How very extraordinary. In all the years that we've had that bird, such a thing has never happened. I must admit, I'm rather astonished. See that she has everything she wants and is not disturbed.
Exit William Center. Enter Claire Wright, with telegram in hand. Claire. Great aunt Mrs. Packington died at 9 o'clock this morning. Trevor goes into fit of scarcely suppressed laughter. Colonel. A great age, was she not? Hortensia. A great age, and for longer than I can remember, a great invalid. At any rate, a great consumer of medicines. I suppose her death must be regarded as coming in the natural order of things. At the same time, I scarcely think, Trevor, that this is a subject for unbridled amusement. Trevor.
I'm awfully sorry, but I couldn't help it. It seemed too unexpected to be possible. Please, excuse me.
The others stare at him. Claire.
The fact is, I was Mrs. Packington's favourite niece. There were things in her will which I couldn't afford to have altered. On the other hand, as I dare say you know, Mrs. Bavvel, she had a very special dislike for you.
I am aware of it. We had some differences of opinion during my husband's lifetime. Claire. It was a favourite observation of hers that you reminded her of a rattlesnake in dove's plumage. Colonel. Oh, but what unjust imagery! She hated Briony and everything connected with it, and I had to keep my visits here a dark secret. Colonel. How very embarrassing. Not at all. I like duplicity, when it's well done. But when Trevor asked me to marry him, it did become embarrassing. All the others start up from their seats. Enter William left. Hortensia. Trevor asked you to marry him. 2 months ago. Mrs. Packington wasn't expected to live for another fortnight, but she'd been in that precarious condition off and on for 5 years. At the same time, I couldn't risk letting Trevor slip. He'd have forgotten everything and married someone else in sheer absence of mind. Trevor. I don't altogether admit that, you know. A thing of that sort I should have remembered. Claire. Anyhow, we married on the quiet, by special license. It was rather fun. It felt so like doing wrong. Ludovic. Do you mean to tell us that you are Mrs. Trevor Bavvel? Claire. Of Briony, in the county of Somerset, at your service. Renee shouts. William! Yes, sir? Has that journalist man gone? A minute ago, sir. Quick! Send someone after him! Stop him! Tell him! Ludovic. Then in the event of a vacancy, Mr. Ludovic Bavvel will place himself at the disposal of the party leaders. Fly! Almost pushes William out the door left. Claire. And William. Tell John to bring up some bottles of Heidsick. Will. Yes, miss. Ma'am. Sybil. You dear old thing, you've taken all our breaths away. I always said you and Trevor ought to make a match of it. Kisses her. Agatha. I shall put up evergreens all over the house. Kisses her. Hortensia. On a subject of such primary importance as choosing a wife, I should have preferred and certainly expected to be consulted. As you have chosen this rather furtive method of doing things, I don't know that there's anything for me to do beyond offering my congratulations, which in the nature of things must be rather perfunctory. I congratulate you both. I trust that the new mistress of Briony will remember that certain traditions of conduct and decorum have reigned here for a generation. I think without making undue pretensions that Briony has set an example of decent domestic life to a very large neighbourhood. Claire. My dear Hortensia, I think Briony showed last night what it could do in the way of outgrowing traditions. Trevor and I have had plenty of time during the last 2 months to think of our main features in the new regime. We shall keep up the model dairy and the model pigsties, but we've decided that we won't be a model couple. Enter John with 4 bottles of fizz. John to Claire. If you please, madam. Will the wagonette and luggage cart be required as ordered? Claire. No. I don't think anyone will be leaving today. I shall expect you all to prolong your visit in our honour. Oh, of course. I was forgetting Mrs. Volpe has to go up to Tattersall's to see about some hunters. Just the dog cart, then. Hortensia. I shall require the carriage for the 4:15 down. There's a conference at Exeter that I think I ought to attend. John. Very well, madam. Exit left. Exeunt Hortensia and Colonel Mutsum right. Agatha, holding up glass. You dear things. Here's your very good health. And may you have lots and lots of... Renee. Oh, hush! I was going to say lots of happiness. Oh, I was afraid you were going to lecture against race suicide. Ludovic, Sybil, Mrs. Volpe, and Renee, speaking together. Mr. and Mrs. Trevor Bavvel. They drink. Trevor. Thank you all.
And here's to the success of the future member of the division.
Claire. Coupled with that of his charming secretary. Ludovic and Renee bow. Enter William, centre, with an enormous pile of sandwiches. Will. Cook thought that as the sandwiches wouldn't be wanted for this afternoon, you might like them now. Those with mustard on the right, without on the left. Sardine and egg in the middle. And please, I'm asked to express the general rejoicing in the servants' hall. And Cook says that if marriages are made in heaven, the angels will be for putting this one in the window as a specimen of their best work. Claire. Thank Cook and all of you very much. She whispers to Trevor. Of course, certainly. And tell John to open some cell in the servants' hall for you all to drink our healths. We're coming in presently to get your congratulations. Will. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. William turns to go. And William! William turning back. Yes, ma'am.
How much did you win on the sweepstake?
William turns and flies in confusion. Curtain. And that is the end of the plays of Saki. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed all the witticisms and sarcasms, and I hope you did too. My stamina is reaching its end, and my tongue has been thoroughly twisted. So I'm just going to say, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I hope to have you back in Brendan Moir's Playwright Corner. Thank you.